Hello friends, lovers, and especially any friends to lovers. Welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. There is love in the air over here. I say that as if I've ever felt a second of love in my entire life, but I'm sure you guys
count.
Yeah, I feel many things for all of you.
Once upon a season, you may feel some affection toward us.
We love you, Obs.
It's not Valentine's Day anymore, but Cupid nevertheless came round, shot us all in the face. And here we are nonetheless, ready to chat all things Season of Love, which I still want to call Seasons of Love every time I say. So miraculously, and for the first time in, I honestly don't even know how long, we have everyone on a call, at least for now. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Aloha.
Veg, you have to leave in a bit for a date of all things. I mean, that's very, very on theme. Thank you for your commitment to the cause.
I'm mid-date as we speak.
And Beans, you've got Galentine's later.
Yeah, I'm going to be making key lime pie later for Galentine's.
Stop! You guys know how I feel about key lime pie.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I wish I could send you a piece. The crust I make with toasted macadamia nuts and graham crackers. It's so good. And then I'm going to do candied lime slices.
Oh.
Anyway, that's me. How's everybody else?
Lucky.
Doing okay. Been a very busy week at work. And then with all of the added Bridgerton stuff, it's been a very busy and exciting week indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know. You've had a crazy busy week. You and Obs both.
Yeah. Well, shall we crack on so Veg can go fall in love or whatever she's planning on doing? I don't know. I don't know the ins and the outs. Okay, so about 3 seconds before we start this episode, because Veg is going to go away for a bit, we're going to take a break and then record the rest of the episode. Beans was like, yeah, I should really probably watch the video and stuff. So I'm going to ask this question, knowing full well that once again, Beans has done no homework for this. So I don't know what happened yesterday, Beans. I don't know if you will know what will happen. Top of the line thoughts before Veg has to go. Well, before we play a game and then Veg goes. But what's our overall thoughts on everything that happened yesterday?
Well, I think, as usual, we have Beans, who knows next to nothing, me, who's vaguely put some effort in, and then you and Lecky, who've been toiling away overnight. You haven't got any sleep. You've made a breakdown. There's 20 Instagram stories on our page.
As per.
But sorry, Beans, what's your impression?
There were a couple things I noticed in the stills. Portia and Colin.
Very cute.
Which I'm stoked about.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nick in her little pirate costume.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like the Holy Grail part 2. We were forever changed when we got Pirate Colin.
Then we got Pirate Pen.
And then now I am once again forever changed. It's a seminal moment in my life.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like the fans brought this on.
I know. Amazing.
So a round of applause for everyone.
I also feel like for a long time we wanted to see more interaction between Portia and Colin. And we spent a long time talking about what their relationship might be like once Polin got together. And to see a little glimpse of Portia interacting with Colin is so fun. And then of course the baby Polin picture where everyone looks so beautiful and we got a little cheeky Colin, cute little baby. Looks great. So excited.
Adorable. So, our lovely Patreon member, Jenny, asked us, through what was said or shown yesterday, is there anything you're more intrigued or excited about seeing? What took you guys by surprise?
The pirate.
The pirate will forever.
That was definitely a surprise.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything hotter to me than a pirate wench costume. There's something about it. For years and years.
Take notes, Veggie's date.
That's probably how you got into the Polin fandom to begin with. You had Pirate Colin and now there's Pirate Pen, reeling you back in.
Oh my god, yeah. There's 2 pirates. It's too much.
Yeah.
But what else got you?
Like I said, I'm very, very excited about the Portia Colin of it all and for that storyline next season. Because we knew that Polin were going to have a little bit of a storyline, but we were all kind of surprised when we saw, I think, Polly Walker at the table reads, and we were kind of wondering how much of a role she would have. And it looks like she's going to be having a little minor subplot where she's not quite ready to leave her nest. And then as part of the upstairs and downstairs of it all, I hope we get to see more Varley. And we had that one still of Portia with Varley. So I'd like to see more of the Featherington household from Varley's perspective, which I think will be really fun.
Amazing.
I'm not sure about the mother-in-law living with them situation. That wasn't the future I envisaged for Polin.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily want it to happen. But it does look like it's going to be funny and that the solution of that will be her eventually leaving.
Great. Wonderful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If episode 1 Portia is like, I'm not ready to leave, then episode 8 Portia has to be ready to leave, or, you know, Colin's kicking her out.
We can only hope.
Do you think Pen and Colin will just commit to making her feel as uncomfortable as possible for the whole 8 episodes so she leaves?
No, that's not how Colin operates.
I think she won't get that vibe. Like, I mean, obviously she walks in on them half undressed and doesn't really care.
Or she'd be like, happily get this spare going.
So I think, like, it would be foolish for anyone to think that Portia wasn't going to try to get involved in their first child, you know? Like, she was going to be on their backs and stuff like that. And it's her way of showing her love, because we know that Portia isn't, like, always super affectionate, but she wants to, like, be there for the kids. And so I think she's going to be a little bit of, like, a grandmager, like a grandma manager.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that she's going to be there.
Because it's the heir of the estate, which they've been waiting for 3 seasons.
Right.
Yeah. And to answer some of our listeners' questions, we do think it is Colin and Portia, not Polly and Luke in the scene. We do think this is a scene that they are filming for the show.
We'll get more into Portia, Colin and Pen a little bit later, but I thought let's warm us up. Because before we knew about the Season of Love event, I had an entire Valentine's Day episode planned.
Oh.
And it had to go absolutely in the bin. So thank you, Bridgerton, for that. But to include a tiny bit of it here, and to include Veg before you go away for your little date, I thought we can play a little Valentine's game if you'd like.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So we're going to play a few rounds of Ruin, Marry, Kill.
Great.
We've done it before, I think.
Yeah.
But I have a little box.
Oh.
Very cute.
Okay, so to warm us up, to get us in a lovely mood, what is your stance on ABC?
Okay.
Oh.
Ruin, Benedict, marry Colin.
Say it. You have to say it.
What's happening to Anthony? She just did like a gesture. I'm like, I don't know what you've got planned for the man.
I just gestured like to the side, like a little hitchhiking gesture.
No, you've got to kill him.
He's hitchhiking out of this life.
I was just going to make him hitchhike home, but...
Throw him into a beehive.
No. Switch Colin and Anthony, sorry.
Oh, God. This is why Veg isn't staying for the full episode, people.
No, because I love Anthony.
Wait, you would kill Colin?
It's a bit harsh. It's a bit extreme.
Or you would ruin Colin.
I would reluctantly kill Colin.
He's the best. He's our favorite.
No, sure.
I can't see Veg ruining Colin, though, either.
No, I think we all agree Benedict would be the best ruin partner.
Ruiner. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did just see Jonathan Bailey.
Oh, yeah, you just saw his play. Fair enough. Fair
Anyway,
enough.
I'm going to pull out 3. Okay. Francesca, John, rest in peace, and Lord Wilding. John's going to die anyway. I'm going to be the first to say it.
Wait, he's going to die even if you marry him in this, like, fictional game? Maybe our marriage could save him.
No.
Okay, just bang John then, don't get attached.
Look at the lollipop stick. Look at the lollipop stick. It says John.
Did you go to Hobbycraft for this?
R.I.P. I did go to Hobbycraft.
Okay.
It says John R.I.P. He has to die.
I reject the assumption that John's going to die, so I'm going to ruin Lord Wilding, marry John, and then kill Francesca, sorry.
Oh my, what's she ever done to you?
Well, I mean, she didn't die. I like John. John is so sweet. And, like, you know what? I appreciate a good silence once in a while.
Me too.
Yeah, I can see you with John.
I know, but you're going to kill Francesca.
And Francesca plays the piano, which I also find a little bit annoying. I mean, not piano playing, but I just wouldn't want somebody playing the piano all the time in my home. So, John.
Beans?
I would ruin Francesca, marry John, and kill Lord Wilding.
I think same.
You know what? You'd have a good time with Francesca.
Yeah, she'd probably be fun.
Well, we'll see in season, 6?
Yeah. Got 3 men on the cards. Are you ready?
Oh.
Dankworth, Sir Philip, and Edmund. Rest in peace.
Okay.
He's alive. We're not, like, delving into weird shit.
So you want me to kill him again, is what you're saying.
I mean, he can die again if you want to kill him again. I think with Edmund, we don't actually know what Edmund was like. Do you know if someone dies and they're like, you can never speak ill of the dead, and everyone idolises the dead person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know for a fact that Edmund was a good guy?
I don't know. He's a bit bland to me. No offense to Violet.
I know he's a hunter. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not a big hunting person.
I'll kill Edmund, and I will do it by bee.
You can kill him by bee.
Or I'll dress up as a bee and stab him.
I'd kill Edmund too, just because I don't know him. I'd marry Sir Philip, because as you guys know, I love gardening.
Yeah. Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'd ruin Dankworth, because he's just...
He's ripe for ruining.
Right for
For
ruining.
sure.
Yeah, he's just so innocent that, like, the bitch in me is just like, let's ruin this little bitch.
You could teach him one or two things, Beans. I could see that.
Yeah, Beans' answer is my answer. I agree.
Yeah.
Good choices.
Yeah, I agree as well. Beans is on the nose.
I don't know with Edmund. I'm suspicious of the man.
I just don't know him that well.
Yeah, he seems bland. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. He horsewhipped Colin in the books, so I'm a bit like,
And also, like, he has how many children? 7?
What?
8.
8.
Oh.
I mean, he had 7 when he... Fucking hell.
Oh,
he had 7 when he was alive.
Right.
He saw 7 be
But,
born.
like, ultimately, he had 8.
We'll pretend that's what you meant. That's what you meant, right, Beans?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. Oh my god, we've gone straight into the Featherington household. We've got Ray, Mrs. Varley, and Philippa.
Oh, okay. I mean, Miss Farley's not going to even be included in this.
Yeah.
What? I think Mrs. Varley would know a good time or two. Back off.
Well, I would both marry and ruin Philippa, especially in that one scene where she's got her hair down and shit.
With her
He's
hair.
beautiful.
Yeah. And then I guess I would just kill Varley and Ray.
Why are you killing them both? That's so mean.
It'd be a massacre.
Okay, so to fit the rules of the game, I would ruin Philippa. I would marry Ray because I think she'd be a really great companion, and I bet she's really funny and on top of things, which I appreciate. And then I would kill Farley. Sorry.
Yeah, that works.
But also, she's like way older than I am, so she would probably die before I did, and it would just be a whole thing. So I'd rather have a more age-appropriate spouse.
Yeah.
You're really trying to avoid this widow situation, aren't you?
My mother was a widow. I don't want to be a widow.
You know what I just realized, which is crazy? My mom's a widow.
Oh, yeah.
Big revelations for Beans today.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, to all widows out there, you know, stay strong.
Yeah. We love you.
Lord Marcus or Michaela is right around the corner.
I feel like that's a legitimate reasoning is I don't want to be a widow.
Guys, I thought this was going to be really light and fluffy, and Beans is like, my mother is a widow.
Oh,
God.
Okay, I'm gonna ruin Mrs. Varley because I think she'd know a thing or two. I'm gonna kill Ray because she's very judgmental, and I think she'd judge me a lot.
Oh.
She'd give me, I love her, but she'd give me the side eye a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd marry Philippa because I think she'd be a laugh.
Yeah, she'd be a laugh, but like constantly, 24/7.
yeah, bitch, with that face of hers, I would marry her and ruin her.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Can we ruin them more than once? Can I, like, marry Ray and she's my mistress?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
Well, that way we get to enjoy all the good parts of Philippa without getting on our nerves. It's wonderful. I see why men in those times had mistresses.
This is a bit of a random bunch. I've got Edwina, Brimsley, and Footman John.
Okay, all the love to Brimsley, but we know where he's going. Straight to the docks.
I would marry Footman John because he seems really funny.
Oh my god. We will be talking about Footman John in a bit.
I mean, Brimsley wouldn't be interested in me, you know? So Brimsley's gotta go.
Oh, yeah, true.
I don't want to marry Edwina, though.
I mean, hopefully when he goes, he meets his previous lover.
That's true. Yeah, let's kill Brimsley so he reunites with his lover.
Yeah.
Who we don't know is dead or not.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're hastening the reunion in the afterlife, even though his lover isn't quite dead yet.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Let's push Brimsley towards Reynolds in the potential afterlife, even though I don't actually know where he is. I'm going to have to kill Edwina, sadly, because she's far too type A. And then, of course, I'd marry Footman John.
I'm gonna ruin Edwina.
Marry Footman John. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna ruin Edwina because Edwina gives me the same vibes as Dinkworth. They're so perfect and cutesy that I'm like, you need to be dirtied. And that's evil of me.
To be dirtied.
And then I would marry Footman John because I just know he would come back with some stories. Like,
Yeah.
you will not believe what the Bridgertons did today.
He'd have all the gossip.
Yeah, we have an appreciation for gossip.
I have to disagree.
Veg, what have you got against Footman John?
No, Footman John's great and hot and
What have you got against the working class, Veg?
nothing at all against working class, but I feel like if we are in the 1800s, which, since we're using the word ruin, I feel like we have to respect laws of the time. So Edwina, I think, in all fairness to Edwina, she would have made a good wife. Maybe not to Anthony, but she had been trained in the ways of being a wife. And I feel like if you're looking for a wife, she would have been objectively good. And then I can go and have my fun with Footman John in the carriage.
So you say she's good to cheat on? You really are, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean,
You're like, she'll be a good wife, so I can go cheat on it.
I'd love her, but I'd also love stepping out on her.
it's 1815 or whatever year we're in now.
Well, thank you very much, guys. We're going to take a little break and we'll see you here very shortly for a little discussion about all things Season of Love. And we are back, sadly, without a vegetable. Beans is baking a key lime pie.
Yeah.
So if the audio is bad, it's because she's making a key lime pie.
If you're missing your veg, we've got some fruit.
A live baking with Beans is happening and she's going to drop in and just share her thoughts. Beans, did you manage to watch the promo video?
I did, yeah.
Your initial thoughts?
I got excited about it.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's giving me the same feelings I've had for Bridgerton before, so.
Yeah, it was exciting, wasn't it?
Well, what we're going to do now, we're going to go through it. I've just toiled away trying to collect as many pieces of information as we can. We're going to kind of go through character by character-ish and see what crumbs we can uncover.
All right.
So, obviously, Valentine's Day is now a tradition. It's our 3rd year running, which makes me question a lot of life decisions. But last year, we got a few stills from season 3 and a clip. And we didn't know what to expect this year because they're still in the middle of filming. And we don't even know when season 4 is going to be released. And yet, we still received the most incredible feast
Truckload.
of crumbs.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented territory, everyone.
Yeah, it is wild.
I mean, in our day, am I just being gaslit? Like, it was a very long wait for season 3, wasn't it?
It was.
It was.
And it was
Yeah.
crazy, right? Yeah, that did happen. And like, this is going really quick and we're getting a lot of information.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel like they're further along filming than we think.
Well, I think they're due to finish in April. I think it's just because we got our first Adum at a weird thing where they didn't have any information to share.
Weird timing.
Yeah.
And then like all the delay, and it just went on forever.
Yeah.
So it's very surreal. But anyway, Season of Love, year 3 or whatever we're on, took place in London, complete with a live stream that, for the record, I was the only one who watched it around here.
How's that work?
Sorry.
I took hours off work to do this and I was just on duty desperately typing as many notes as possible because they don't release the recording of it officially, do they?
Yeah.
I've learnt this from years past.
But there's a copy on Twitter.
Well, now there's a copy on Twitter, but I didn't. I spent 2 hours.
Yes.
I spent hours typing up the notes.
Toiled away for us. Yes.
But look, we got the notes. We needed them. So the event was hosted by Golda and Hugh, who, I mean, you guys won't know, but they did a great job. They honestly were brilliant.
I've watched clips of it since then.
You've watched
so.
clips, cool.
Yeah.
Beans, have you watched clips of?
No.
No. It was great. You would have loved it had you been there. But yes, Golda and Hugh were joined by Luke Thompson, Yerin Ha, and the showrunner Jess Brownell. So we received a ton of new information and content, including themes of the season, character storylines, new stills, and a glory of all glories. It was kind of a behind the scenes, but also trailer.
Yeah.
It was insane. We got lines from the show. Do you remember when we used to spend hours deciding what the first line we'd ever hear from the show would be? Like spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of the one where we got a glimpse of the full moon ball. There was like a person in a dress and we're like, who's the person in the dress? Where are they? But like way more detail.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, what's that dress? Here they're like, here's the dress. Here's all the other dresses. Here's the extras. Here's the set. Here's the masquerade.
Here's the entire scene.
Yeah.
Unprecedented times, honestly. Benophie's rejoicing. Polin fans were singing from the pirate ships. Fans of Footman John, your life's been turned upside down,
Yeah.
myself included. A lot to discuss, so let's get into it. And we have to thank our Patreon members for asking us questions for this episode. It's super short notice. We're going to try and answer as many as we can. And there is so much to think about and go over. And although we are a Polin podcast, you should all know by now that we love the whole show. We love all these characters. So we're going to try and cover as much as we possibly can. So, where to begin? Jess began by recapping season 3. I don't need to recap season 3 because we are spending many hours of our lives currently doing that for you. So, you know, we know what happened. But she did say that we got a happily ever after. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So, where are we picking up with our characters in season 4? Well, it's the Benophie season, so it'd feel wrong to start with anyone other than Benedict and Sophie. So after recapping season 3, Jess reflected on where we left Benedict, saying, then you have this guy over here doing what he does, gallivanting, dabbling,
Sexy.
I keep wanting to say dabbling. That's not what he's doing. Sexing, having a pretty good time. But there is just this little flicker on Benedict's face at the end of the season where we can tell he knows something is missing and maybe is lacking depth and commitment in his life. And she said that this kind of closing moment of season 3 is really what's driving Ben's story as we move him from season 3 to season 4.
Closing moment. Okay.
Yeah, I think she means, do you know the moment in the hallway with Eloise and Ben when they were kind of saying goodbye to each other?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll be back for the masquerade. And then you're left with Benedict alone in the corridor, just sort of having this moment by himself.
Or the swings.
It feels right now that the next thing I might learn may change me entirely.
Yeah, the swings as well.
Yeah.
And with regards to the writer's approach to Benedict and Sophie's story, Jess talked about how the writing team have talked quite early on about the spectrum that Benedict and Sophie sit on. So she said that Benedict lives in this fantasy world almost to a fault, whereas Sophie, by contrast, lives on the other end of the spectrum, which is very hard reality.
Yeah.
And Jess said that that's not her fault, but it has hardened her in some ways, and she doesn't always let herself dream of more. And their story is one where they both need to meet in the middle. And she said the theme of this season is true love being somewhere between fantasy and reality, and that this idea really gave the writing team a structure to help the characters find their way to that middle. Luke also talked about the journey bringing Benedict into his own season and stepping forward. He had this really beautiful analogy where he compared Benedict to a musical theme that's always been there throughout the show, sort of playing in those moments, but now it's time for him to become a symphony.
Fill it out. Yeah.
And Luke acknowledged that Benedict had been through a lot in previous seasons, but he's been slowly drip thread throughout the show. I started off in a corner of a ball, just looking at other people, being a bit snarky. And now to have a character like that slowly gravitate towards the centre is really exciting. And he said that Benedict has been circling the show, even in the structure, how he's sort of is in the ton but then goes off a little bit and has these other moments before he comes back into the main world.
Yeah.
And he said that in season 4 it was going to be interesting to unpack why that is. Is it bad luck? Is it that Benedict hasn't met the right person? Is there something blocking him? And he seemed to really land on it being a lack of commitment, and that he, as a character, Ben keeps his world separate. So you have Benedict, the artist. Also, thank God they mentioned his art. Hopefully that comes back in season 4. But you have Benedict, the artist, but then you have Benedict at home, the person he is within the family, all these different parts of him that he's scared of unifying, and having loved tie all those things together. It's scary for him, but that's really what we're delving into. And that's what his main block is this season. Yerin reflected on Sophie, who means you don't know just yet, but obviously introducing a new character is really interesting because she is from the book, but then we know how the show really transforms the characters as well. And she said that what drew her mostly to Sophie was how headstrong and independent she is. And she reflects that Sophie craves love, but when this man enters her life, she refuses to surrender everything. She doesn't just give in. She has dignity and self-respect, and her journey is about accepting that being vulnerable and asking for help are not signs of weakness. Yerin also revealed on the red carpet that she has lacked a lot of love in her life, but when she receives a glimmer of love from someone else, it makes her very happy. So you have this character who has had to almost harden herself in some ways because of the reality of her situation, and can't be vulnerable and can't feel like she can show weakness, but there are these moments of breaking down those walls. And Yerin said, a little spoiler, that Sophie cries when Benedict says that he loves her, and it's a reflection of the pain and trauma that she's carried, and it's that sort of a release of that. What are you thinking, Beans, hearing about Sophie for the first time?
That's very sweet. And also depressing. But, you know.
She acknowledged that. She said it was very sad in a way.
Yeah.
But that's who Sophie is that, like, she hasn't had love and she hasn't grown up with love. So when she experiences it, it's delightful but unfamiliar, and also reminds her of the love she lacked before.
Yeah.
And she also says that Benedict, she meets this man and he turns her world completely upside down. And in terms of the themes of the season, Jess said that this year is all about what's forbidden. She said it's about pushing boundaries, about forbidden love. It's a class clash between a gentleman falling in love with a maid. And she says that's just something that didn't happen in the time period. And the season is about, can these two characters fight for their love and make it happen, even though it seems impossible? Beans, you've kind of got a lot of bits and pieces of the story.
Do I?
What do you think is kind of the overall journey?
I know that Sophie works as a maid, potentially for the Bridgertons. I know that she has a stepmother who doesn't like her and two stepsisters. And then they get married in the end.
It's a good summary. So you know that she's a maid and that kind of class divide is a big driving force between them because obviously...
They're from two different worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he doing at the minute? He's basically running the Bridgerton family. And interesting that you just mentioned book Benedict, because Jess actually said that this is the most faithful adaptation that they've done. And bearing in mind that with season 3... Jess said a lot that was very, very faithful to the book. And in some ways it kind of was, especially like episode 2, it's like very faithful. And I think what Jess was saying even applies to the costuming that we see Sophie in. So I know we've only had like the tiniest little glimpses, but it kind of appears as if Sophie has 3 different maid outfits, which tracks because in the books she works for 3 households. So I wonder if this is going to carry over to the show. You've got her stepfamily, you've got, Beans, I don't want to spoil this for you, but someone who might end up being 5, I don't want to talk about it, we'll deal with it in 3 or 4.
Okay.
And the Bridgerton family. But she said that Benedict's story lends itself to adaptation. I mean, it's a classic Cinderella story that's been adapted so many times that it does kind of lend itself to kind of being transformed again. But she highlighted that Benedict's character is different from his book counterpart and that Luke brings a self-awareness and sensitivity to Benedict. In the story of trying to woo Sophie, he is more delicate and thoughtful in how he goes about it.
That's good.
So, Beans, you've kind of heard us talking, because you know what the offer is, the offer from the gentleman in the book.
No, I don't know what the offer is.
Lecky, can you give us like a very top-level overview?
Okay, he asks Sophie to be with him, but is not promising her marriage. Because he's also in love with the lady in silver, who is the woman he met at the Masquerade, who also happens to be Sophie, but he doesn't know that they're the same person.
So he meets Sophie at the Masquerade, Beans.
Okay.
But she's masked,
Right.
obviously.
That I have seen and noticed.
Yeah, so there is a love triangle, but it's with the same woman.
Yeah, there is a love triangle. It's between Benedict, himself, and Sophie.
Man, those Bridgerton boys are really dumb as a box of rocks. My goodness.
And this is the thing, because in the book, it kind of works because it's not a visual medium, but... And when you come to Sophie's costume, you're like, how will he not notice that it's her?
Yeah.
Because... He has eyes, presumably, which I think is why the mask is like quite big.
It covers just enough of her face to make her unrecognizable, because that was something some people were worried about, because it is a little bit silly, the fact that like he wouldn't be able to recognize her because she's wearing a mask. But I think they did a really good job of making the mask big enough that it covers enough of her features that he maybe wouldn't be able to tell.
So it sounds like the offer is going to be more sensitive than him being like, I don't want to marry you because A, you're a maid, and B, I'm in love with someone else. But if you want to be my bit on the side, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And Sophie in the book is like, no.
Good.
Nice offer, but no.
I will refrain from including a bunch of spoilers here, but I was rereading parts of the book last night because of some of the interviews we saw yesterday. I wanted to just go and revisit a couple scenes. And there was a moment where Benedict is having a conversation with Sophie, and he realizes that the reason she is so upset about their conversation is because of something from her past, and he guesses what it is. So I wonder if we'll see more of that sensitivity where, like, she's telling him one thing, but he realizes there's another motivation behind her behavior and kind of can read more into her feelings and is a little more sensitive to that because of it.
Because Benedict is really good at that. Like, we have seen that.
Well, he is sensitive. He's just also kind of dumb. I would say that's all Bridgerton boys.
He kind of, like, Anthony's very, like, up in your face, like, what's happening? What do I need to fix?
Right.
Violet's kind of like pushing people forward. I think with Benedict, he recognises when his siblings are hurting sometimes.
Yeah, kind of like Colin.
Yeah.
Like in that moment in 203, in the scene when they're having tea and Colin's describing his experience in Greece, and Benedict realizes there's more to that and that Colin's not necessarily happy or feeling fulfilled.
That's a good comparison because they do have that shared sensitivity and perceptiveness.
Yeah.
But I think what you have with Colin is when he sees that someone's drowning or in trouble, his hero instincts come in and he's like, how do I fix this? How do I make it better? Like, do I apologize? Do I like spend time with it? What do I need to do? Whereas Benedict is much more sort of
restrained.
Yeah, he's restrained and he's thoughtful and he kind of offers support where you need it, but then also like lets people figure it out a little bit as well. And then also doesn't get too involved. He sits back. Oh my God, look at that. That looks so good. Sorry, Beans is making the key lime crust.
Like a graham cracker. Yeah, crust, sorry.
It's just graham crackers.
It's really distracting. So I'd love to see that sensitivity and perceptiveness applied to Benedict. It's just often he doesn't get involved with people's business because he's like, it'll work itself out. It's just more noise. But with Sophie and with their story being so much about, you have to fight for this. This isn't just going to work itself out. Everything will be fine. Like, you either fight or you lose. And it's making him commit to that.
And when he does come to another character's aid, it's in like a more quiet way. When he sees like Eloise is upset, he'll like offer to leave the ball early with her or things like that, or take time to like go sit with her on the swings and like be there in her presence, but not necessarily like push her or try to fix the situation.
And that'll be very sweet for when you have Sophie, who Yarin said really struggles accepting help and being vulnerable isn't a sign of weakness because she's been conditioned to think that she cannot show weakness or it'll be exploited or mocked or used against her. And then having Benedict, who will give her this space to allow herself to unfold, but then also might have the instinct to protect her as well. And be like, I'll fix this somehow. And her rallying against that occasionally.
Yeah. And being several steps ahead of him. Because Jess Brunel said she's like a masterful chess player. She's always several moves ahead.
And I like that idea that maybe Benedict will be trying to plan their way out of it and she kind of subverts him.
She has her own plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Beans, if I say the words, my cottage to you, does that have any meaning?
My cottage?
My cottage.
No.
It's a new location for season 4 that Benophie will be visiting together.
Okay.
It is also the location for one of the most famous of the book scenes. And it's also a space where they can kind of be alone outside of society for a bit. So that'll be interesting because...
Do the Bridgertons have a cottage?
It's called My Cottage. Have you seen the picture of the cottage, Beans?
No.
It looks like a mansion. It's not much of a cottage. It's Loseley Park.
Basically, the joke is that it's a massive fucking mansion.
Oh.
It's like a really big estate. But yeah, that's the cottage where they will briefly spend some time.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting because we'll see Benophie interacting in the ton, where they're kind of forced to play into their actual roles in society, where he's the gentleman, she's the maid.
Right.
But this is a space where they can be themselves and where they can kind of get to know each other.
Okay.
And Luke said that they spend quite a bit of time at My Cottage. And as you say, key scenes take place there. Our dear friend Purple Cat said, were you surprised at My Cottage? I mean, Beans is surprised to learn it exists. I don't know if that counts. Purple Cat. My favourite Beans moment yesterday was, no, it was the day before yesterday. It was when the influencers went to the sets and there were like cards outside the locations. And Beans was like, did we know that Sophie was a stepdaughter?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, we knew. I was like, you didn't know, but I was like, it's great to be on the learning journey with you, Beans. You're so excited. But Purple Cat is our dear friend, and she has been an original book reader from all those years back. And she said it's been a while since she read Novel from a Gentleman, but she'd always imagined it as a cozy cottage.
Yeah. I don't know if I was surprised, but I love how ostentatious it is because it's just so Bridgerton, that the Bridgerton family is so wealthy that their cottage is just this fucking mansion in the country. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I can imagine like the visual gag of that on screen.
Yeah.
Like just the joke itself.
Because he's probably going to be like, well, I'll take you to my cottage.
My cottage.
And then they show up and it's this massive.
And she's like, oh, your cottage. How lovely. And he's like, my cottage.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
And like you say, Lecky, it's still a household of the upper class, but it's away from the ton. So again, it's this space where the boundaries are going to blur.
And this kind of reminded you of Jane Eyre, right, Offs?
In Jane Eyre, Thornfield is this space and you have the bedroom doors being open when they shouldn't be open. And it's about Jane being a governess who is a weird space because she isn't a servant and she isn't of the upper class. And it puts her in this very weird liminal space where the boundaries really blur between her and Rochester. And although Sophie is a maid, technically in society, when she goes to My Cottage, she's in this strange limbo space, which is why they can build this bond and have these moments of connection where the boundaries aren't as straight as they are in the world of the Ton back in London.
You were mentioning Jess Brownell earlier, who was talking about that liminal space they're going to be playing with the staircase metaphor, as she said, where they'll be meeting kind of in between. They'll use the visual metaphor of a staircase to kind of set scenes for Benophie. She said that there is a lot of key moments that are actually set on landings because they're these in-between spaces, because there's the world where he's a gentleman and the world where she's a maid, and then they created these moments in staircases where they can kind of meet in the middle and be together. And that kind of ties into the fantasy versus reality theme, where they're meeting somewhere in between, kind of carving their own space between fantasy and reality.
Because in the book, with him having the offer, his offer is almost like a trying to work around it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how Benedict like tries to create a world around it, but it's temporary and it isn't real, and how Sophie has to be like, get your head out of the clouds kind of thing. Oh, I wonder if that's where the cloud motif's coming from.
Something I was interested in when I was reviewing the book last night is I was reminded that Benedict is aware of the concept of the servants' stairs, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of that upstairs-downstairs dynamic. So we may see the servant stairs that they take to kind of stay away from the family and get out of their eye a little bit. So it'd be really interesting if they use like the servant staircase for like a Benophie scene at some point, I thought. And then just to comment more about my cottage, in the behind-the-scenes video, there's the scene of Sophie handing a candle to Benedict in like a dark room. That's Loseley Park. That's my cottage. And then there's them seated in front of the fire where he turns to gaze at her. That's set at my cottage.
Oh, it's going to be great. So the Masquerade takes place in episode 1.
Yep.
We know that. Episode 2, having a look at the stills that we know come from episode 2 and episode 3, is kind of strange, the structure. So we know that promenade with Eloise with Benedict in the Ton is episode 2.
Yep.
We know that like the clips of Benedict and Sophie in a carriage outside, like a half carriage outside Bridgerton House, is episode 2.
Yep.
And we know that the still of my cottage comes from episode 3.
Very strange, huh?
And then it looks like by episode 4, Sophie is a maid in the Bridgerton household. So at what point are we going to my cottage?
I'm guessing they're going in episode 3, but I think that maybe they're going to be playing around with the structure somehow, because I don't understand how they come back in episode 2. Because even if they were doing pickups, it would say episode 3. You know what I mean?
Because you can see it on the clapperboards, can't you?
Yeah, on the clapperboard it says 402. There's a scene of them sitting on a carriage, and then there's another scene of the exterior of Ranger's house, and you can see them in the very corner. And it's obviously they're arriving back together. And that, I don't think that can be tied to the Masquerade, though it was interesting to me. Jess Brownell said that a large chunk of the Masquerade occurs in episode 1, which means there may be more to it.
Interesting.
But I don't think that particular behind-the-scenes shot of them in the carriage is tied to the Masquerade, because obviously she's not dressed like she was at the Masquerade. But I think they're going to be playing with the timing a lot. I don't know how they're going to do it. I wonder if episode 3 is maybe just a flashback episode. I don't really understand, to be honest. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I need to read the book again, to be honest.
We will be reading the book again.
You using the word again is quite a bold statement there, Beans.
I'm looking forward to reading the book with Beans.
For the first time.
Yeah.
But I totally noticed the chunk thing as well. I think either the missing chunk of the Masquerade will either be the beginning of episode 2, like it'll cut and then it'll be the last bit.
Yeah.
Or I wonder if it'll be like a flashback in even like episode 8 or something. Well, that would kind of make sense, I guess, if when he's like, oh, it's you after all, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I would love to hear our listeners' theories on this, because we know there's going to be a time jump after the Masquerade, and we know that they have this moment at my cottage, presumably before they return to the Ton. So how do you think that's going to play out? Why do you think my cottage is in episode 3 as opposed to episode 2?
Please let us know.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if episode 2 will be a lot about her past or something like that. Like maybe we'll get a deep dive into Sophie's past and the passing of her mother, her backstory with her parents, etc., before she finds herself back in the present and perhaps in need of rescue is a way it could potentially play out, I was thinking.
Maybe they're setting off in episode 2, but
why are they setting off from Ranger's house?
Yeah, they wouldn't go to my cottage and be like, oh, this is a happy little story, off we go. It's like more traumatic than that, isn't it?
I need more context.
Unless he's just like run into her and being like, oh, hop on. It just doesn't make sense. Any theories?
It doesn't make sense to me because it's also daytime, so it's not like he encountered her during a traumatic moment, rescued her, and he was like, wait, I'm just going to stop at home and then I'm going to take you somewhere where you can be safe. I just can't wrap my brain around it.
Yeah, and it's also like she's just proudly sitting next to him in broad daylight.
Yeah. When I first saw that, before I saw the clapperboard, I was like, okay, that's them arriving home from my cottage. And then I saw the clapperboard and I was like, well, could it be a pickup? But it says 402. So I can't make sense of it. We need more context to understand exactly.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
What you think is happening. Well, while we're trying to sort of work our way around the book to screen adaptation, Jess actually acknowledged that there have been creative choices with the new family, Araminta and Rosamond and Posey, but she still maintained that the family is still rooted in their book counterpart, so we have a little bit more info to go on there. She reflected that Araminta and Rosamond, they are villains in the book, but on screen, you need to humanize them.
Yeah. Right.
And she said that both Michelle Mao and Katie Leung really bring that humanizing quality to the characters. I think if we learn anything from season 3, it's that it's really important.
Yeah, Katie Leung is hot.
If we learn anything from season 3, it's that we need to know why people are the way they are instead of just having a flat villain. They did that really well with Cressida. They really humanized her and showed us her motivation. So although they are going to have these villainous sort of traits or actions or whatever, they will be human.
Yeah.
And Yerin talked a lot about the complex dynamics that are at play for Sophie as she's with that family. She says that Araminta misuses her power and that the stakes are really high for Sophie. I mean, it's about survival. It's as high as it can possibly be. And then she also compared Sophie being in the Penwood house to having an MRI.
Yeah.
I love Yerin. She has like such a great way with like metaphor.
Yeah, that and the prism.
The prism, yeah. And she says it and you're like, that's genius.
Yeah.
But she said it was like having an MRI because it's claustrophobic and suffocating, but it's a necessary procedure to find out what's wrong with you so you can fix it.
Yeah.
So it's like putting Sophie in this extreme situation and we see how she works and then we see the story of how she comes out of that and sort of not fixes the trauma, but heals and recovers from it.
And in the behind-the-scenes video, we obviously receive many glimpses of Araminta and her daughters. At one point, we see Araminta and her daughters at the Masquerade, but we also see a glimpse of the family reacting to Sophie's presence, likely before the Masquerade, as we see the entire family in their ball attire at home, except for Sophie, who is still dressed as a maid. Also, we've learned from past interviews that it seems like one of Sophie's stepsisters will be pursuing Benedict, and we can infer that something of that nature may be happening in the behind-the-scenes footage we saw because we see Ben and Elle on a promenade. In the last video that was released, Isabella Wei, who plays Posey, also appeared in the same location, and in this new video, we see that Michelle Mao, who plays Rosamond, also is on location. So this promenade could be a moment in episode 2 where we see Araminta and Rosamond somewhat targeting Benedict as a potential suitor.
So that's a lot about where we're at with Ben and Sophie, and I think it's so different to season 3 because we knew Pen and Colin so well and we knew what their challenges were going to be, or we could anticipate. But with Sophie, even though she is rooted in the book, like you don't know what kind of new aspect she's going to have. And one of our listeners, Nick, also drew our attention because we've got the lake. We know we've got the lake, we've got the staircase, things like that. But Nick said, what do you think the kite reference was about?
I didn't catch the kite reference.
There was a kite reference. I can't remember where it was, but lucky this is a true thing. She says, it has me slightly baffled. I can't figure out where it would fit. Maybe just a light-hearted scene, or maybe flying a kite is something Sophie remembers fondly from her childhood, you know, pre-Wicked stepmother era. And then she sees it with the Bridgerton siblings, sort of this beautiful moment. What is going on with the kite?
I need to know what context she mentioned the kite. This is the first I'm hearing of a kite.
It was literally just mentioned. It was literally just mentioned as like a word. And so Jess was like, a lake, a masquerade, a kite.
She also mentioned constellations. Interesting.
Having just spent an incredible amount of time, like us two, making the 303 episodes,
Yeah.
I don't know that I can take any more flying objects in the sky. Like,
But in that same interview where Jess Brownell is talking about stairs being a visual metaphor and the liminal space, she talks about how she's a philosophy student and she's really interested in metaphors like that. So I wonder if the kite is another metaphor where it's something that's free, but it's still tethered and it needs to be let go.
Yeah, yeah.
Or pulled into the ground, something like that. There's some sort of little metaphor there where Benedict is like a kite in that he wants to be free, but he's still tethered to the ground.
But he needs the resistance of the wind to actually make him fly, because without it.
Yes. Sophie's the wind. There you go.
Or, here's the dum-dum in me, the Bridgertons discovered paragliding.
Yes.
You know what? Absolutely let them.
Yeah, because Greg's going off to Eton and he likes to go out in a blaze of glory. So he like paraglides off to Eton.
And they just stand and wave.
Yep.
Yeah. They're on the cliffs of Dover. He's paragliding off to Eden.
Yep.
Oh, God.
That's exactly what it is.
I think it's so funny that you hadn't heard the kite. Yeah, and that was my reaction. I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't understand it unless they're using it as some sort of metaphor for
Unless they mean the bird.
Benedict or something like that.
Yeah, so let us know your... This is such an unhelpful episode. I'm sorry, guys, but let us know your theories about kites.
Well, I feel like I have good points about this behind-the-scene video, but I hadn't heard the kite thing, and I don't remember a kite in Benophie's book.
I don't think there was.
So,
Yeah, it's got us all stumped, so...
editor's note. I was also thinking that they could maybe include some sort of neat reference to Korean culture and Sophie's mom in some way with this kite theme. I was doing some reading online and stumbled upon something about the Lunar New Year in Korea and how it was customary to write wishes upon a kite in order to free yourself from the misfortunes of the past year and the year ahead. In an anecdote written by a man named Stuart Colin in the 1890s, Colin also claimed that this practice was often carried out by mothers for their children. So I wonder if we could see a connection to Sophie in that vein, where it is a fond memory of something her mother did for her before Sophie lost her mother's protection and before misfortune befell them.
I would love, like, we think that the marketing for season 4 is going to be like, oh, this masquerade. And I'd love, do you know how for season 3 it was just the balloon everywhere?
It's gonna be the kite. And in the opening scene, you're expecting a masquerade mask, but you're gonna see a kite.
Oh, God help us. Okay, so Benedict and Sophie, there we go. What a love story, eh?
Yeah.
Let's move into a couple of other characters. So quite briefly, we have Kate and Anthony. So we saw a tiny little clip of Jonathan Bailey waving to the camera.
Bearded.
It looked like Anthony was in his study. Yep, he's got his blue waistcoat on, sleeves rolled up, stubble in full force. How long have we been asking for a Bridgerton man to just have a bit of stubble?
Yeah.
It's not much of us. Jonathan Bailey, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Yeah.
We appreciate it. I think it's possibly because he was filming something at the same time.
Whatever contractual obligation meant that you had to retain stubble for shooting Bridgerton.
God bless it. Thank you for that project. We don't have any Kate in the behind the scenes, but Jess Brownell confirmed that Kate will be there. She said that Anthony will return from India
With the baby in tow.
and we will see their baby.
Yes.
I assume he's going to be called Edmund. I can't, once again, like, I only have capacity for so much speculation. So we don't know what the bloody Lord Featherington baby's called. I'm just going to call Cantonese baby Edmund. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So do you think they're going to be back from India permanently? Surely they can't just be spending months of their lives just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
No, I think they're going to finally move into their own...
Aubrey.
Yeah, they're going to move into Aubrey Hall, or the rest of the Bridgertons are going to move into their own residence. I feel like maybe it would make more sense for them to go to Aubrey Hall, because that'd also be really healing for him, because that's the spot where his father died and where his fears about falling in love and even parenthood kind of stem from.
And if we have My Cottage, then we like have the other Bridgerton residents for the season. Like we don't need Aubrey Hall.
And I feel like a lot in this season, they kind of want to explore areas away from the town a little bit. So it would be nice to maybe see them at Aubrey Hall together.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons they switched Polin and Benophie, because Pen and Colin's story is so about them being in society.
Yep.
That to sort of have the Benophie story go first, where we like go into the underworld of the servants, and then to like pull back out of it and like lock back down, it would have been a bit weird. Yeah. So you can kind of see why Pen and Colin had to go first. Speaking of Pen and Colin, we have an update on Polin. Jess said that Penelope and Colin are fully Polin now. They've merged. Colin is a wife guy. They're pretty happy.
Finally. Colin, my wife, Bridgerton, has arrived.
He's arrived. He's entered the room.
Yes.
We just need him for one season in episode 5, and then he can go live his life as much as he wishes. Thank you for turning up. I would like to thank Jonathan Bailey Stubble. I would like to thank Colin, my wife, Bridgerton. Two incredibly important supporting characters this season. I'm sure you'll all agree. But they're pretty happy. Pen is publicly whistled down now and is navigating this new place in society. And she's also navigating her new relationship with the Queen.
Interesting.
Hold your thoughts. Because as I was desperately watching this live stream and desperately typing away, I was just thrown by a photo of Polin and their baby on the screen. I lost the ability to think or type. I wasn't expecting it, and yet there we were. It's a still from episode 1. You've confirmed that, Lecky. Thank you very much. And we have Pen, Colin, Violet, Hyacinth, and Portia is in that shot, but she's like almost...
She's right behind Violet.
It's really weird. She's like
Yeah.
perfectly in line. I was like, what's going on with Violet's face?
But you can see enough of her to know that she's smiling, I think.
Yeah.
She's pleased as punch to be there.
And it looks like she's in blue. She's in her Bridgerton blue. And they are all fawning over the still unnamed baby Lord Featherington. Jess thought about teasing us with the name, but it's a state secret, evidently. And they're in the middle of the Bridgerton drawing room, all together, a happy family. Veg, how are they looking?
Wow, wow, wow. Our first sight of domestic Polin has left us in a state of domestic bliss ourselves. Happily married Pen and Colin with a red-headed baby in tow. This is the stuff dreams are made of. Let's start with happily married Pen because mother, may I, Mrs. Penelope Bridgerton is back in her favourite seafoam blue in a dress that is very similar to the one we saw her last wearing in the season 3 epilogue. It's a true marriage of the Featherington Bridgerton households as the delicate Bridgerton palette meets a good old bold Featherington print. Long gone are Pen's season 3 kiss curls. I suppose they got the job done. Kissed, married and mothered up within the year. So instead of the kiss curls, Pen has opted for a simple and elegant pulled back hairstyle. I guess the last thing you want is to have loose flowing curls ready for a baby to yank on, yikes. Penelope is of course accompanied by Colin, my wife Bridgerton, making his season 4 debut. I guess the more things change, the more things stay the same, and we have once again found Colin waving to the nearest baby. At least this one is actually his this time. Colin is wearing a dark blue suit, very much the classic Colin style we saw him embrace at the end of season 3. Concerned parties do not fear because Colin's much-loved watch fob has made its way through to a brand new season, dangling artfully down from his very light blue and golden waistcoat. Very excitingly, it appears Colin has a new companion for the season in the shape of a new ring, as if fans need any more reason to lust after Colin's hands, and particularly his fingers, for another year. As for Colin's hair, it is out with the support curls and in with the return of a very old friend, the ship's Prow, as this hairstyle has long been known. It's a real blast from the past of season 1 Colin, who is now alive and well. This is Lecky's favourite kind of Colin, and to be honest, I'm pretty fond of it myself, so I know she would be bloody thrilled at the sight of that little quiff proudly steering the good ship Polin. And although Colin's chestnut waves have returned for another season, we must pass along our commiserations to those brunette jeans which did not stand a chance in the face of the mighty recessive red-headed jeans, because joining happily married Polin is, making his season 4 debut, the still unnamed but still very much ginger baby Lord Featherington. This is a baby that was prophesied by the Bridgerton gods all the way back from the moment we caught season 1 Polin gossiping over an equally red-headed baby Lord Trowbridge during the What a Barb scene in 104. We named our whole bloody podcast over that scene. You guys know we love it. And you gossip over the ginger kid, you end up with a ginger kid. Them's the rules. Be careful what you gossip about. As for the still unnamed baby Lord Featherington, he is looking cute in his snow white gown with a nautical-inspired blue trim. When both your parents have a penchant for piracy, I suppose it's inevitable that their child would end up being a tiny little sailor of his own. Adorable.
So, what did you think when we got this? I can't believe we got it. It's so cute. I was so thrown by it.
I love it. I love it. I love that Colin is boasting kind of like a cheeky smile, which we really love. His hair looks great.
Lecky, I wanted to ask you about the hair.
It does look very season 1, doesn't it? A little bit of a return of the ship's Prow.
Yeah, so some of our listeners have said that it is more season 1, but you've been such a fan of the ship's Prow.
I did love the ship's Prow. I think he looks great. He looks happy. That makes me happy.
He has a new ring on his hand that you can't read. I wonder if that new ring, because it looks like a gem or something. So I wonder if it's the seal of Featherington House.
Oh, maybe.
Like the seal ring, because I don't think it's a wedding ring. Doesn't look like it. So I wonder, because he'll be the de facto head, so I wonder if that's his little... Midsummer, our lovely listener, said that she suspected that Colin's hair would look different now. But did your heart break a little bit to see his new hairstyle, sans emotional support curl?
I knew we weren't going to get the emotional support curl.
I think maybe we'll get
Some ruffled hair.
Yeah, we might get some waves or something like that. But I knew that Luke wasn't growing out his hair again because we've seen him, you know, here and there for pictures and stuff like that. So I knew his hair wouldn't be as long as it was in the previous season.
Right.
But it looks good. It kind of ties into the nautical theme for the season. Let me be your anchor. Let me be your ship's prow.
What I'll say is, I have loved that emotional support curl with all my heart, with all my soul.
It's done its duty.
The curl has done its supporting.
Yeah.
It got the girl. The curl got the girl.
Yeah.
Colin's heart is happy now. We're not seeing him crying. The curl doesn't need to do the heavy lifting. It can rest.
Yeah.
It can rest.
Yeah.
And the ship's prow is back. I mean, it's got to be his wife's a fucking pirate.
Yeah, love
we
it,
are
love
sailing the high seas once again. So the Carl has rested.
Yeah.
We're back to the ship's prow. So it's for a happy reason that we've lost him. So it's domestic Polin. I think Pen's styling, like you pointed out, it's pretty much exactly the same dress as
The 308 epilogue.
the epilogue, but just in a different colour.
It's softened.
I'm glad that she's like back in like the light bluey sagey, because the first glimpse that we saw of her this season was kind of like the white.
It was like a white gold. It was like an off-white, almost yellow color.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that Penelope, Colin, and Portia all have this kind of color palette, because that later clip in the behind-the-scenes video that we see of Portia and Colin in Penelope and Colin's bedroom, Portia is wearing almost the same shade of blue, a blue dress with this like gold applique running through it, and his waistcoat is the same shade of blue with kind of this greenish gold floral pattern on it. So it's really interesting that all three of them are kind of boasting the same color palette. And then I just really love that Portia is like right there with them. She's just a reflection of married Polin.
Yeah. And this isn't actually the first time we've seen Portia in blue.
Yeah.
From our very old season 1 rewatches, she used to wear blue a little bit when Colin was engaged to Marina. Like, she will take any opportunity to be like, we can be Bridgertons now? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And I think Colin is very similar to his style at the end of season 3 when he was like settling into himself more. Pen, it's so nice to see. I miss her kiss curls, but it's nice to see this sort of evolution as she's a mother, but she's also still has her business and still is young. So it's a nice combination. And our listener, Danae, talked a little bit about Portia as well. She wanted to avoid book spoilers for those who haven't read, you beans. But it's interesting in how they're going to work the dynamic between Portia, Violet, Araminta. Beans, she says that like you, she really adores Polly and she's so happy to see her back.
Hell yeah.
And we don't know how much time we're going to have with them, but it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to keep the Featherington Bridgerton household in the show. And I feel like that's alive and well right from episode 1, sort of that integrated family.
Yeah.
I think Portia and Violet have always had this tension between them. But I think ultimately, like, Araminta has more, I don't say more villainy within her because that's a bit too like black and white, but
Yeah. I also just feel like after season 3, Violet and Portia are more of a unified force.
yeah.
I don't know if Portia will play a role in kind of some of the conflict that we see in Benophie's book. I wonder if her main subplot, her main storyline will be coming to terms with the fact that she may eventually have to
Get out.
to leave the nest. Yeah.
Because I think Portia and Violet have always been comedic and they've always been annoyed by one another. But I think Violet and Araminta, when someone might sort of be a block to her child's happiness in that way.
Yeah.
I think Violet, you're going to see a very different side to Violet in that respect and going against her.
Maybe Portia will even help lend a little bit of her fighter nature.
Portia will be up for a cat fight. Of course she will.
Yeah.
And speaking of Portia, Jess said that Portia's life has been turned upside down. She doesn't know what to do with herself because life is going well for her. She's like, what is this feeling so sudden and new? And Jess was very emphatic that Portia is not moving out of the Featherington household and is enjoying it all far too much.
I think she's going to have some great dialogue, judging by that still we saw of Varley holding the dress, and Varley just looks like...
What's happening? Yeah.
Yeah, bewildered by whatever Portia is doing or saying or planning.
It's going to be so much fun.
And also we have a little return of the Sustainable Queens, the Featheringtons, because in one of the stills that was provided, we see Varley holding up a dress that looks very similar to the one that Portia wore to the Featherington Ball in 208. This, of course, is nothing new for the Featheringtons, who have often recycled their dresses.
Reduce, reuse, recycle!
I think they've done that classic thing. Do you know in season 3 when they kept having Pen appear in her old season 1 outfits in 301, but they just like stick an extra embellishment on so it looked like a different dress? I think that's what they've done here. So I'm pretty sure it is Portia's 208 dress. I think they might have just stuck a bigger flower on it. But, you know, it's always nice to have a reminder of such a happy evening.
So this could be a dress that Portia has perhaps had redone by the modiste, but I did see some hilarious speculation that suggested that Portia might be gifting this dress to Varley. If you've read An Offer from a Gentleman, you know that there is some conflict going on with some of the servants in the households. I'm just going to try to be vague there, but It would be really funny if Portia gifted a dress to Varley, especially like this, because even though it's a little bit of a crackpot theory, the dress is also green. So in Portia's mind, she could have said, oh, I'm going to give Varley another dress in our family's color scheme, but it's just a little fancier than your current uniform.
And Muffman's mama said, I'm loving the fact that Portia and Varley are still living in the Featherington house. Will chaos ensue? Will Portia be encouraging Polin to secure the bloodline with more kiddos? And Jude said, I'm wondering what you think about Portia and the married couple dynamic. Are they literally all living there in the same house? What's that going to do to the loved up couple's freedom?
I think she's going to be the type of mom who just like walks in, because like there's that clip we just talked about where she's squeezing Colin's cheeks. The way I think that sequence plays out is that Colin is helping Penelope get ready for the masquerade, but things get almost like a little intimate. But then Portia bursts in with Varley on her heels. Portia's all lovey-dovey about Colin, squeezing his cheeks. They finally get rid of her, and then Colin resumes helping Penelope and steps back to the mirror to help her get ready for the ball. That's what I think happens.
And I think Portia be like, we need a spare, so by all means, get cracking.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really funny. And I think it is interesting, isn't it? Because that's been such a motivator for Portia for every single season, survival of her family and having to make difficult decisions and having to constantly be pushing forward and not being able to relax or enjoy yourself. Like, she's a comedic character, but she's also sort of been in
Traumatized.
quite tragic circumstances. Yeah, it's not been easy for her. And like, Colin is a capable character and Pen is a capable character. And she's like, so we're okay.
So we're good?
We're not sinking every 5 seconds. And just like, what do you do with that when your life is kind of going well? And she's built a great relationship with all of her family. And I think that's going to be really nice. And like you say, how do we have that tension? Do we end up with Portia? I'd love her to find love. I don't know if we have space in the season for it, to be honest.
I don't think there'll be time for it.
Maybe her and Varley just ride off into the sunset. Like, what more could you want?
If I had to speculate, because
That's what we're doing, Lecky. So yes, you have to speculate.
If we had to speculate, which I will happily do, we know that Finch is in season 4. And I think it'd be really funny if Portia goes on this journey where she's like, I really need to let Penelope and Colin have their own space and move on and take the next step in my life. And that is by moving in with Finch and Philippa at the very end of the season.
And she's with them for a few years. And then Oh, and speaking of that gorgeous moment with Portia squeezing Colin's cheeks, just
love it.
Mojo Mom said, how do you think the Portia-Colin dynamic will play out? The way Jess was talking at the start of the event makes me feel that Portia has a new favourite child, even if he's actually a Bridgerton. And how quickly will that grate on Pen and eventually Colin?
I'm guessing it will grate on them a little bit, but not too much. But this whole dynamic reminds me of this interview that Nicola did in the lead up to season 3, where she was talking about, they were talking about how they hoped Portia and Colin's relationship would look in the future. And she said she thought it'd be really funny if Portia was one of those mother-in-laws that kind of had a little crush on her son-in-law. And I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here. She just adores him. He helped save the family. He could do no wrong in her eyes. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
I think it's going to be a comedic outlook. And I think we're going to need it with Sophie's story being quite traumatic. But I also love that because in season 3, we were always like, oh, what's Portia going to think of Colin and Pen in season 3? And actually, she dragged him through the dirt. She was massively suspicious of him. She was not happy at all. It wasn't this kind of moment where she was like, oh my God, a rich Bridgerton, well done. It was like, what the fuck are you doing?
The neighbor boy. Yeah.
He's a neighbor boy. And they clashed massively. And I think to go from that point to this really sweet moment of genuine love and genuine affection between the two is really fun. I think it could go a few ways. I just have this vision of like Pen being the only one kind of annoyed by it.
Oh, she will be.
Yeah.
Because he's been like a Featherington from day one. We've always said like he's always at that house. So it's not even a shock that he's moved in. And like he's just so incandescently happy with his life.
I love that.
That he's like, I love Portia, we're great. And it's like them two in cahoots, like having a great time. And Pen's like, for fuck's sake, you two.
I love that.
I think he might actually get annoyed with Portia occasionally, but like
if he feels Pen's actually upset by it, he might be like, my wife kind of thing. But
we've talked in the past, I thought it'd be really funny if Colin had to deal with like Portia's shenanigans and scheming and got really annoyed by it. But I almost like this angle better where he's completely fine with how off the wall she is and her little quirks. And Penelope kind of needs to like bring him down to reality a little bit. Like, we kind of need to get rid of her, or this maybe isn't a great idea. We kind of have to stop her from scheming. She said she was going to do better, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And like, I want Colin to be really competent in running the household.
Yeah.
And just really good at it for the first time, and just really happy to, like, people have always been like, oh, is Colin going to find out that Push is a schemer? And it's like, he's quite a forgiving person. Like, I think he's totally on board with it.
He's a family man.
Yeah, and he's a Featherington at heart. We all know this about him.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is why I think Colin will enjoy it, but I think he'll have his moments where he's like, okay, Portia, I'm trying to, get it on with your daughter, please leave.
Yeah.
Is because he comes from a big family. So having Portia there, being a mom, is going to be, like, important to him because that's what he knows. That's what he likes.
Yeah, he's used to chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? It's been really funny for several seasons. We kind of see bratty Penelope listening to her mother, rolling her eyes at her antics. So to have like Colin by her side, witnessing these moments with Portia, but maybe not like condemning her, but just maybe like gently like correcting her here and there, and just being happy to be with her will be really funny and cute.
And then when it comes to Pen and Colin together, I know that we have a Pen and the Queen, but I think the two of them will just be fun comedic relief.
Yeah.
And that's not to sort of like dismiss them as like just pure comedy characters. I think it could be very genuine, and it's like saying like they've merged together, and I can imagine the two of them just being, when they're out together, just this like united force. I'd love to see them interfering, and just one long what a Barb scene forever. And we know that they've definitely moved into Featherington House, of course. I was originally kind of sad because I wanted them to live in their little lovely Bloomsbury dark blue yellow house for longer. I shouldn't have worried because Colin just packed up and moved the whole fucking thing over to Penn's.
Yeah, including the sofa.
I think that's in the living room.
That's hilarious.
Actually, if Portia knew what happened on that sofa, she'd be great. She'd be like, well, he was conceived on there. It might as well be in his house.
That would be the seat. She would like put it in her grandchildren's bedroom and be like, this is where you guys were conceived. So we know it brings good results.
Oh my God, yeah.
It'd be really funny if they replaced the sofa by the window that Penelope always sat at with that sofa.
Oh, well, I remember that Nicola Coughlan once said that when Pen and Colin married, they'd combine their households, and she said the result would be disgusting.
Yeah.
As like a merge of the styles.
Yeah.
I kind of love it. I kind of love that he's brought the chaise longue. So he's brought his bed. So his bed went to Bloomsbury, and then they've brought it to Pen's bedroom.
Yellow sheets.
Yeah, and it has yellow sheets. So if you look, which we've done like a comparison, it's definitely Pen's bedroom set that they've used and repurposed. I think they've redecorated it, and the point is that it is Pen's bedroom, or they might just be like, this is just a different room in the Featherington household, but it is Pen's old room, the set.
I feel like they might just keep it Penelope's bedroom because there's something sweet about the idea of the window overlooking the Bridgerton house, but now her heart is there with her in the room.
She doesn't have to look out anymore, that comparison, and she's with her love.
Yeah.
And it is that perfect yellow and blue mix. I like the idea that he moved in, he like looked around, because Pen's room was the only place that wasn't yellow. It was like this respite from the world.
He's like, not enough yellow.
We need to change. And she's like, for fuck's sake. And like you say, he's brought his yellow sheets.
What was the quote from the merch? Be daring, my darling. Put some yellow in the bedroom. Needs more yellow.
He's just a Featherington at heart. Like, he fits right in. Purple Cat said they've redecorated Pen's room. I keep squinting at the picture on the walls, knowing,
oh, Lord,
we'd be doing the same. We have been doing the same. Me and Lecky sent many pictures to each other comparing the same. Do they have significance?
So one of the pictures I couldn't identify, the one on the left, which is like of a woman dancing, I think it's their twist on a painting of...
All right. I'm going to put my audio on pause because I'm about to make whipped cream. But the listeners, you get to listen to me make whipped cream.
A painting of this ballet dancer from the time period called Marie Camargo, but they tweaked it and made it look a little different. But I think it's based on that.
And then the other one, Lecky sent me a message. You were like, do you think this is Eros and Psyche? And I was like, I spent a lot of time looking and I can't do it anymore.
I did too. And it's not. I've spent hours looking for this. I was searching for like relief. I was looking for like medallion, neoclassical medallion.
Can't do it anymore, guys.
I tried everything. I couldn't find it. But I did find the one on the left. And
well done, Lex.
I really couldn't find anything super significant about the ballet dancer.
Let's be metaphorical. It's a reminder of Pen choosing that love is important to her at the 304 dance.
Oh, yeah, because of the ballet. I like that. Yeah.
It represents love, whatever.
That's fine. Editor's note. Okay. two things. First of all, the painting of the dancer is not new. It's actually a painting they had hanging up in their apartment in Bloomsbury. But here is a little bit of information about the ballet dancer in case you were curious and wanted a history lesson. So Marie Camargo was allegedly responsible for two innovations in ballet. She was one of the first dancers to wear slippers instead of heeled shoes, and she helped popularize both the shorter calf-length ballet skirt and the now standardized ballet tights. She is also said to have been as strong as male dancers, which is interesting when you consider the themes tackled in season 3. And she also apparently had a rivalry with another famous dancer of the time named Marie Soleil, which again has parallels to Bridgerton and the sort of rivalry we see between Penelope and the Queen.
How much shit did Colin bring over? Like, we saw in their house, there was shells everywhere.
Where'd the shells go to?
That's all got to go in the house.
Yeah, those are all in like Ray's bedroom and the servants' quarters. They had to find somewhere for all the shell decor, and her bedroom walls are just covered in shells.
Yeah, like we have the contrast of we're at the Bridgertons and we get the servants' world and like, oh, they're like politics between themselves, all the subplots. We go over to the servants at the Featherington house. It's just them constantly pinning up fucking shelves and redecorating, getting out the yellow paint.
This is a tangent, but there is like one shell on display at the Bridgerton house that I always thought kind of looked like a dinosaur.
Like a dinosaur, I know the one you mean.
Part of our random object game, I think. But but I love that Colin, he wanted to kind of include a piece of home. So he's like, I'm going to decorate my home with shells. There's fucking shells everywhere. Not just one shell, but many.
Everywhere. Bless him. And of course, the clip of Pen and Colin. How are they both looking, Veg?
Another season, another scene of these two hooking up in front of a mirror. Mirror, Pen and Colin are the gift that keep on giving year after year, and we're here for it. How can we begin anywhere else but with Mirror, Colin, and his extremely squeezable cheeks? It doesn't really feel like a season of Bridgerton unless Colin's face ends up being enthusiastically squished by those around him, and we're thrilled to see Portia picking up the mantle for season 4. Cheeks aside, we are also delighted to confirm the first sighting of Colin's cravatless neck. Woo-woo! Good job, bare neck truthers, whatever I call you guys, comrades, fighters, whatever. Well done. You got it. You got your wish. First sighting of Colin's cravatless neck as he seems to be preparing to shed a few layers and change into his mysterious masquerade outfit. The jacket is off, the neck is out, and the white sleeves are billowing in full force, which you guys know I'm a massive fan of. We also have Colin proudly flying the Bridgerton Featherington flag with his gold and blue waistcoat, which hilariously matches perfectly with Portia's own outfit. I feel like maybe that's not an accident. And mother-in-law finally out of their chambers, Colin steps towards the two loves of his life, Penelope and full-length mirrors, as he prepares to play lady's maid for his wife, which upon reflection would make a splendid masquerade outfit for him. As for Mirror Pen, sadly it appears she's adding more layers rather than losing them, as she gets ready to slip into piracy for the evening ahead. The red curls are tumbling down her back in a lovely updo that is sadly not long for this world, as somewhere out of shot there is a magnificent blonde wig standing by, ready to storm the decks and sail Colin's mirror fantasies towards previously uncharted shores.
So as you say, Lecky, this looks like it's connected to the Portia cheek scene. So like Pen standing in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Can't absolutely be stopped with the mirror.
Mirror 2.0. Love it. Love it.
Mirror 3.0. I class the mirror promo as the OG mirror scene.
Yeah.
But you have Colin stepping up behind her. And it looks like he, like you say, like he's dressing Pen before the masquerade ball because she's got her like her, so it's not the overcoat of the pirate costume, it's like the underdress, isn't it? Like the base layer.
Yeah. My idea was that maybe he's supposed to help her get dressed, but kind of gets sidetracked before Portia walks in and then kind of gets down to business afterward.
Yeah. Not that kind of business. Like actual dressing.
Yes, but you think she's getting ready for the masquerade because there's another prop in the scene.
Yes, her little black mask is on the table in front. I have squinted to see if I can see like a bit of Colin's costume.
Yeah.
We still don't know what he's wearing, but we'll get there. I think it's such a cute moment because it's domestic, but you can see how it'd be like really hot and like really steamy if they played it that way. But it's Happy Polin. Can you even imagine?
Love it, love it.
And talking of the masquerade, we'll definitely cover Pirate Pen later. But in that clip, we saw Pen and the Queen talking to each other at the ball.
Yes.
Do you think that they're pointing out Sophie? It looks like Pen's like pointing and saying something.
Yes, I was trying to read her lips and it almost looks like she's saying, who could that be?
Who could that be? Yeah, because I like the idea that Pen knows everyone in the ton, except why would she know who a maid is?
Yeah.
Which is also kind of crazy, though, because Pen does, travel in places where the high society is not.
But they're not expecting a maid to be acting like a debutante at a ball, I think, is what. And it's interesting you say that, Beans, because in the book, Pen observes the lady in silver at the masquerade, and she kind of almost realizes that it's Sophie before anyone else does. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So it is something that sticks in her mind.
Everybody at the ball has these very ostentatious costumes, and Sophie's is kind of low-key, which is something that Penelope might notice.
Which, she might point that out to the queen and be like, who's that?
Also, although Pen may have more awareness of the servants than other members of the Ton, if the Gunn and Lee family is new to London, then Pen wouldn't necessarily recognize Sophie. So Sophie's presence could throw Lady Whistledown off for that reason as well.
Yeah, because Pen wouldn't even know who it was.
Yeah.
Right. So it would make sense for her to maybe point her out there at the ball.
Yeah. So we had that establishing moment. You know what it really reminded me of? It reminded me of that moment in 301 where Lady Danbury and the Queen talk about Penelope. And they're pointing her out. And then it's like sweet that we find Pen flipped and being that for the Queen.
Oh, and then we like that Penelope is wearing a blonde wig. So it's almost like the only way to disguise Lady Whistledown is to disguise her hair. So maybe she's trying to be a little bit under the radar.
So talking about Pen and the Queen, so everything that Jess was hinting about these characters, she said it was very specific to episode 1. So we find Pen having this friendship with the Queen in episode 1. She's definitely in the Queen's good books. And Golda also talked about the Queen having new friendships. But our listener, Sasquatch Uprising, said, what do you think the relationship will be between Pen and the Queen? A tentative friendship or more of the Queen using Pen for her own ends? I'm really curious to see the dynamic develop further.
Well, I think that eventually Penelope will maybe push back on some things that the Queen says, or maybe Pen will get too comfortable with the Queen, and then the Queen will be like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, because she can change her mind on a whim kind of thing, can't she, the Queen?
Yeah.
Because I've been wondering that as well, like, yes, they have this, I mean, they always have this great respect for one another, I think, and the Queen has always deeply admired her. The Queen really enjoys the game.
Yeah.
It's kind of the thing where she really likes having Pen as a friend. I'm sure she finds her really witty and really intelligent, and that's great entertainment. But will it last? Will it be complicated? Like you say, Beans, will the Queen want to use Lady Whistledown in a way that causes friction between the two of them and Pen has to kick back? Or will Pen do something that displeases the Queen? Will she intervene or not intervene in a certain way? And will that cause that tension between the two?
Yeah, I feel like if you think about the character arcs, usually a character starts in one place and ends the season at the opposite, or if they've learned something. And from what we've seen in these clips, it looks like the Queen and Penelope are partners. So I wonder if by the end of the season, they won't necessarily end the partnership, but either Penelope will finally stop writing and move on to some new endeavor.
Key lime pie.
Oh my god, she's magnificent.
Oh, that looks gorgeous. Penelope will either finally stop writing and start some new endeavor, like writing a novel or something like that, or they will kind of, like you said, the Queen will insert herself too much and then realize that Penelope needs to retain her own voice, which is something that we've discussed often in the past, that eventually the Queen would realize that she likes that Penelope has her own vision.
I'm really glad that we're going to have this friendship, because I feel like we'll get to it in our rewatch of part 2, but I kind of wanted more from the Queen and Pen's relationship in season 3. And I feel like the reveal didn't quite go far enough. And I wanted to see the Queen's reaction and have that tension. So I think if that carries through to season 4, we might get what we were kind of hoping for, which is, you know, you have the admiration, but you have someone who also loves the game, and 2 very powerful women.
Yep, respect.
And yeah, definitely exploring that a lot more. It will be a challenge. I'd hope it will be a challenge. I also think it's not a good idea to have Pen just have this best friend relationship with the Queen, because that's too much of an easy out for benophie. Like, oh, there's a problem, or we have a straight line to the Queen. Like, obviously that can't happen.
Yeah.
I'm definitely so intrigued by Pirate Pen, because I think, primarily it's a funny joke for the fans. It's an homage to all the love we had with Pirate Colin. But I also think it's kind of an interesting character choice to put Pen in. Because if you think about it in terms of Pen and the Queen, pirates act outside and even against the state, and they operate on their own personal terms instead of being on commission from the monarch, which is how a privateer would act. I wonder if having Pen as a pirate is foreshadowing that she might go up against the Queen at some point in the season, or will maybe go off and start operating on her own terms, and maybe that's where one of the tensions will be for the character. Or maybe they just wanted to be a pirate. I'm cool with it either way. If we're thinking about allegiances and shifting allegiances, you notice something really interesting about the Queen.
The thing that I noticed, which was kind of interesting, is that throughout the behind the scenes, we see a shot of the Queen with Lady Danbury, and she has this really interesting wig that's very thin, and to me, there's like feathers on the top, and it almost looks shaped like a quill to me, and I wonder if that's symbolic of her partnership with the Queen at this point in time. At the very beginning of the story, like her wig is an actual symbol that she's united with the quill, the pen that is writing all the gossip and the taunt as they return for the season.
I love that. I wonder what will happen when they fall out. Just a snapped in half feather on her head.
She'll dye her hair black and have like an all black wig that's like dripping ink.
Yeah, a pirate stabbed through the heart on her head. Well, Pen and Colin are doing well. Thank the bloody Lord, honestly. But how are the rest of the siblings doing? Well, you can't mention Penelope without mentioning Eloise. We saw in the behind the scenes in January that scene of Pen and Elle shopping together, arm in arm. And at the event, Jess also said that Penelope is her favourite platonic love on the show. She said, the way that we've been able to dig into that friendship and the significance of it for those two women, we see how the friendship has helped them grow. That's always a friendship that we're going to want to keep checking back on, even in season 4. There's a lot about sisterhood in multiple different relationships, so you should see more of that. So I think there still might be tensions with, not tension in terms of conflict, but Elle will have mixed emotions about having Pen as a sister, but also not having her completely because Pen has this new life now. So that's kind of going to put her in a bit of a weird place.
I feel like Eloise is going to learn a lot from married Penelope and seeing, we've talked about this for ages and ages, but that, you know, that Penelope can be a businesswoman as well as a happily married woman and kind of play an active part in society, especially because it sounds like Violet is going to be pushing Eloise to marry again this season. So that's something she's rebelling against, but she can see that there is a way that that could potentially work for her.
Because it's that thing of like, you see something and you hear it, but like, I don't know that Eloise will want to hear it at that point. So she'll see this great example, but she's still resisting it. And with Elle herself, like you say, she's fallen back into Violet's clutches because Violet last season kind of gave Elle a break. She was focused on Francesca. She knew that Elle was still hurting after everything with Pen, but now she is back.
Yeah.
This is something you speculated, Beans. I was really impressed because I thought Violet had learned that she shouldn't push Eloise like this.
Bridgerton learn a lesson and retain that information, not our show.
But Beans speculated that Violet would be pushing Eloise back onto the marriage mart again.
Because she doesn't have anybody else to do.
Yeah.
I think if I recall, I said that I think Violet's going to try to encourage Eloise by using Colin and Penelope as an example. And also, you know, saying, well, your sister's married and Hyacinth is going to be coming up into society soon and you'll be the only one. And I don't think it's because Violet is trying to get her out of the house. I think it's because she hopes that Eloise will find somebody who understands her. And she knows that Eloise can.
She can't do that without putting herself out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also interesting what you said about Violet almost like needing to have this
project
and needing to matchmake somebody in the household. And Jess Brownell said that Hyacinth is almost going to be like pushing for her mother to let her debut early so that she can enter society. So that'll be a source of comedy. Right. Jess Brownell said that Eloise and Hyacinth will be partnered together, where Eloise is a reluctant participant in society, whereas Hyacinth will be campaigning vehemently to be an active participant in society.
I was like, fuck's sake, I was born in the wrong order. We really don't know much about Eloise this season yet. I know it's early on in promo. It kind of feels like, do you remember last year at the panel when Luke Thompson was being asked about Ben's season 3 arc? And he was like, I don't want to say anything. Because, you know, it's going to be his season now and it's the season before his season's always interesting. I kind of feel like Ella's going to go on this journey, but we're not going to be told exactly what it's going to be for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I saw this interview that Luke did yesterday, and he was asked about what was it like stepping into the leading role after being kind of in the background for several seasons. And the first thing he said was something like, I was speaking with Claudia about this the other day. And then he kind of paused, and then he like shifted and redirected. And he said, and Florence. And he was talking about what it was like for all of them to, you know, be participants in the show for several seasons. But I'm pretty sure Claudia's next, and he slipped up again in that interview.
How special is it as an actor get to continue on in this journey and now stepping into the main Bridgerton lead in season 4?
I know, it's amazing. And I was talking to Claudia about this the other day. We were talking with with Flo, actually. Florence plays Hyacinth, about, she was saying, is this the longest part you've ever played? And I was like, yeah, I mean, obviously. Like, I've played this part for 6 years now, and it's probably the longest part I'll ever play.
It was a slip.
But also the other thing for me that confirms now from the new information that we have that Claudia is season 5 is that there's that behind the scenes glimpse of her as Joan of Arc at the Masquerade. Because yes, that is the disguise she had on in the book or whatever. But that's her fighting against society and against love and against marriage. So you know she's going to fall victim to that next season. It's happening.
Right.
Good luck, Sir Philip, basically, babe. I've maintained that all I want from season 5, like their entire conflict, is like Philip sitting quietly in a room, just watching Eloise going around in circles, like losing her fucking mind. And he's just like waiting for her to accept it.
He's got like a lone flower in a little pot on his desk and he's watching the petals fall one by one. And by the time the last petal falls, she comes around. They're in love.
And then interestingly, Jess also teased that there might be a Sophie and Eloise bond. Kind of like Eloise and Kate, I suppose, in Kate's season. Because they're a similar age and they have the same strength. Yeah. And Jess would just say, if I were a betting person, I'd say the two of them would get along. I mean, we know that Elle already gets along with Footman John. So what's another servant to add? And then, as you said, Lecky, one thing that I absolutely loved is that Hyacinth is going to be tagging along with Eloise.
Yeah.
And she is desperate to pre-debut early, and she and Elle get paired together this season for comedic results.
So obviously she's pushing to be taken as a woman and not as a girl.
I'm not a girl, not yet a woman.
And our listener Sinner Beast reflected on this combination and about how they're going to provide comedic relief. And they said, that wasn't a pairing I was expecting. Do you have any speculation on what that could look like? And our listener Jude also said, any wish list scenes or scenarios for Hyacinth as she is keen to get out into society. She will be so different to her older sisters and how she navigates the time. I think she's just going to cause chaos.
Hyacinth? For sure. Yep. That's what I want to see from her.
Oh, absolutely.
The ton is not ready, quite simply. It's something that Luke Thompson actually talked a lot about during the panel. He came back to it a few times about Hyacinth and Gregory. He said that they were his favourite storyline in the whole of the season. And he said that we're really going to see them step more into the centre of the story this year.
Interesting.
He said that Gregory and Hyacinth take their first steps. They're always there, part of the family, but it's really nice to get to watch them slowly inch into the light. I find that really moving, actually, because when we started, I don't know how old they were, but they looked tiny. And that can only happen in a 6-year period of being on one series. You don't have that anywhere else. That kind of feeling of long-form development is so nice. I loved hearing that they're going to take a step forward, because I feel like Greg and Hyacinth were such bright spots in season 3. And I think they've always been like really perfect in their roles. Like they've been perfectly cast and they really, really embody their book characters that you know that they sort of grow into really well. And I think as well, as time goes on and we lose Daphne, we lose time with Kate and Anthony. I think season 3 sometimes felt a little bit sparse in the sibling interactions.
Yeah.
And having them really take the step forward. And I love like putting the siblings in like funny combinations. Like Elle and Fran last year, but then you have like Hyacinth and Elle and
even more chaotic. Love it.
Yeah, and Hyacinth wanting to be out and Elle wanting to be in. And then also that making Elle feel really young as well because she's stuck at home with her littlest sister kind of thing.
I'm excited.
I think we've talked about this before, too, how at the end of the season, Eloise is going to watch her favorite brother get married. Her best friend is married. She's left at home with the 2 youngest. But now Gregory is off at Eton, and Hyacinth is literally campaigning to be at every ball and society event and to get married and presented as soon as possible.
Elle, you're running out of siblings to use as human shields here.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like she's going to be feeling the pressure big time, which is why she might attempt to potentially flee the town.
I think she is too. And I'm also really excited for just more sibling interactions, like we said. I'm interested to see, because I think that Hyacinth and Gregory probably have the best relationship with like the maids and the downstairs.
Yeah, Hyacinth gets her Lady Whistledown issues from the maids.
She's sneaky.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that we'll get more interactions because Hyacinth maybe like gets more, like you said, information about society from them.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that will be fun.
Just like you said, Hyacinth might be one of the only Bridgertons that actually kind of enters that downstairs world because she's kind of a child and can still get away with it. And also she's Hyacinth.
Right.
We were also asked, do you think she'll try help Lady Whistledown secure some gossip? Because we know she adores Penelope.
That would be funny if she has like a big tip, but Penelope doesn't quite listen to it or absorb it.
Yeah. And as you say, Gregory will be heading off to Eton, which is something we speculated last year because it was mentioned in season 3 and he's kind of at that age as well. But then also Luke was really sort of emphatic that he really loved the storyline. So I don't think we're going to follow Greg to Eton. Like, I can't imagine us packing our bags and heading off to boarding school.
Latin lessons.
So maybe it's just going to be one of those Bridgerton timeline things where, like, it's like Kate and Anthony going to India. Like, it takes them, like, 2 minutes.
Or like Fran going to get her piano lessons, where he's just kind of absent for the story at times.
He can't be absent for the whole season and still have one of the best storylines. I think he might just, like, come and go and it's like, oh, it's half term again.
Oh, yeah, that would be funny. Yeah.
I used to live near Eton. Like, it's super close to London. So actually, it isn't difficult to get there. And if they're playing around with the timelines as well.
He just comes home and he's like a really overwhelmed student.
If Anthony can just pop back on the boat for a weekend and then pop back to India, then he can make it from Eton.
Anthony comes back, enters his study, doesn't find Benedict in there, but Gregory is in there studying just because he wants some peace and quiet. And the books haven't been looked at except for Gregory's textbooks.
It's sweet that Gregory's sort of wanting to step up and become like his brothers as well. And then the other sibling, Francesca, John and Michaela. We really don't have many details about this. We saw John and Fran at the Masquerade, looking great, although I don't think they had like themed costumes. I was trying to pick out the little details for any hints, but I couldn't see a sign of Michaela at the ball either, although she is listed as like one of the main cast members, not just the supporting cast. But one intriguing tidbit that we did get from the live stream was that Yerin said that Francesca's storyline was her favourite, although she couldn't say why.
This makes me scared they might kill John this season, but I hope not.
Oh my gosh.
Well, now listen, Nick said that she was really intrigued when Yerin answered Francesca. Any thoughts and ideas of where they're taking Francesca's story, in brackets, and John, close brackets, I'll add off in a coffin perhaps? I can't see him dying this year.
If I had to speculate, I hope he doesn't die.
I've got terrible news for you, babe.
But if I had to speculate, what I think that means is that Francesca comes to the realization that she's a lesbian, that she is actually attracted to a woman, but she still feels, you know, love for John, and she's kind of wrestling with who she actually is and her new role in society and her marriage because she loves John, but maybe realizes that they weren't meant to be together.
It's a different kind of love.
Yeah.
I can't see him dying this year. I think for a start, I think Marina's death will probably have that, like that'll need space within the story. I think that's going to have to happen.
Nope, that's a good point, yeah.
I think with Francesca and John and Michaela, because you never want to devalue the relationship with John.
Right.
Yes, it's different. And that's a conclusion she can come to, like, it isn't the same kind of love.
Yeah, so it has to be a realization about herself and not about her marriage and John necessarily.
Yeah.
I think we have so far to go before John can die, because John's death has to have a massive emotional impact. Because if she's like, oh, I don't actually love John, oh, he's dead, oh, what a shame, like, it's not going to work. So I think we need more space. This season will be her real struggling with, like, married life with John and trying to understand how she feels.
Yeah.
And then I think she needs to struggle with that and sort of end on a difficult note with that, where it's really hard for her to have that realization. But then I think in season 5, she then needs to sort of find this balance where she's like, oh, I can live with both of these loves. She almost finds peace with how she can sort of exist with her different relationships. And I think when she's found that peace, that's when he needs to die. I think, like, that's when the rug needs to be completely pulled out from under her. I don't think you can do that in a whole season. I think that needs 2 seasons.
Yeah, but I feel like this has to be a season of discovery and realization for her. But I think it has to be more about her, an individual journey, than necessarily about her marriage, because I feel like they want to develop that she does actually care for John so that his death has emotional weight and packs an emotional punch.
And if you think Jess said that the season was about forbidden love and what is forbidden in society, and they have set that up.
That's forbidden, yeah.
Cheerful stuff. Okay, speaking of, God, the theme of this episode has unfortunately been widows. Between both of your mothers. Happy Valentine's Day, love dies, and you're left widowed. But speaking of widows, how is Violet doing? Well, it was confirmed that we're going to see a lot more of Violet, and there was that still from 402 where she's standing with Marcus. Doesn't look like number 5 is going to be a thing, Lecky.
Yeah.
Because Sophie is made in the Bridgerton house. I think because, like, this, she's still got young kids. They're not going to kick her out, are they?
Yeah. If anything, Marcus will move in.
He's like Colin moving in at Featherington House. Marcus rocks up. He's like ready to go.
Yeah, completely happy. It's like, I'm good with the aesthetic. I'm good with you. I'm good with the kids. He didn't like his empty nest, if you remember, in season 3.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm moving back into somebody else's nest. I'm all good.
That would be so lovely if Violet is kind of like torn and doesn't know how to navigate with Marcus. And then there's this scene where like there's just chaos.
He manages the brood.
Do you know how like Kate is really good with the Bridgerton chaos? Because it's a lot to take on, isn't it? What are you hoping for Violet?
I'm hoping for, I don't know, I guess for them to advance that relationship a little bit more. Jess Brownell was talking about how the relationship was mostly giggles in season 3, and we're going to see more in season 4, which I don't necessarily think we're going to see Violet and Bloom, especially because like Ruth Gemmell from her interviews, it sounded like she doesn't necessarily want to explore the too passionate side of Violet's relationship with Marcus. But I think we will see more of an attraction between them and them taking more serious steps with the relationship.
I think that's what threw me in season 3 is that the passion
Was missing.
was such a big part of Queen Charlotte, if you remember.
And it was kind of absent, yeah.
And then it just kind of like,
It was forgotten.
yeah, and it was, her relationship was like, I mean, we were making jokes about them being ploughed and everything. And
Yeah.
and I just thought that you'd have that sort of physical passion. But then it went a little bit more coy and a little bit more refined. And like you said, I just wanted to progress in some way. Jess said that Violet's costume at the Masquerade was a big hint to where Violet is emotionally.
It's lilac.
And it's kind of covered in flowers. It's lilac.
She's blooming.
Did you just go, she's blooming? She's blooming. That's the Violet section done. She's blooming. Our lovely friend Purple Cat very aptly said, she's wearing a whole lot of lilac. It's the colour of true love. Is it a hint of how her plot will progress? I hope so.
Yeah, I feel like it's important for them to set up that relationship and for Marcus and Violet to become a firmly established couple also before Fran's eventual season, so that Fran could see that she could find love after loss.
Also for Eloise to make it even worse for Eloise next season, be like,
The lovey-dovey.
now I have to see my mum being loved up with Marcus. Okay, let's keep it in the family because God knows Lady Danbury always did. How is Lady Danbury, Queen Charlotte and Brimsley? So Jess said that it's all about Lady Di and the Queen this season. It's going to be a really big focus on the relationship. We learned so much about their origin in the spin-off and we want to dig more into that this season. And we were promised new levels and shades for the friendship. So what could that look like? I'm really glad to hear this because again in season 3, I feel like we just didn't have as much time with the Queen or substance with the Queen sometimes because we'd had like that real deep look in Queen Charlotte, the spin-off, her motivations and her world. And then I felt like we kind of then like pulled back again in season 3.
I have no idea. I don't know. But she did say you would see different shades and levels in Lady Danbury and the Queen's friendship. So I wonder if maybe they'll actually be in conflict a little bit more, you know, butting heads a little bit more potentially.
I think maybe last year was a bit more delving into how Queen Charlotte illuminated Lady Danbury for us. So we got a bit more Lady Danbury backstory. So maybe this is like that, but for the Queen, because Golda was sort of joking like, oh, the Queen's always, you know, new hallways to walk down, new dogs to hold, new friendships. But she did say that there's a vulnerability to her this season. And Hugh Sack said that Golda is breathtaking in certain scenes and that she shows a side to Queen Charlotte we've not seen before. And he said that these scenes were beautiful to film, but it sends Brimsley into a complete tizzy.
This is a depressing speculation, but I wonder...
Mate, it's an episode about widows.
Speaking of widows, if you wanted to go to the topic of widowers and widows, I wonder if the king will die.
Laurie and Victoria both asked us this, so you're pointing to
The empty chair. I will say that the season 3 trailer opens with servants setting down an empty chair, but the way that this is kind of focused on just the chair, and it's just kind of blue in this mournful color, I wonder if maybe the king...
As Laurie said, has dear King George taken his exit?
So we know that the hair and makeup teams often use hairstyles to convey the kind of headspace these characters are in and what is happening in their storylines. And at the Masquerade, we see Queen Charlotte with another wig where it has this kind of exposed wire mesh in the shape of a heart, and you can even see a little crown inside. And I wonder if maybe that is a reflection of her storyline this season, where perhaps she's forced to confront matters of the heart outwardly a bit more, but the weight of the crown and her responsibility is still weighing on her.
And that would... Because if George does die, then the whole like regency shifts because like the whole point of the regency is that there's a regent in place. And then Charlotte's position shifts massively as well. I don't know. Is everyone going to die this season? Is this a season of death?
Life after death. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to take note. Two people who hopefully won't be dying. The Mondriches. So we've been promised that Will and Alice are now fully in society and enjoying their role there and maybe looking for a new challenge. And that Lady Danbury is going to be helping the Mondriches with that challenge. So, Lecky, you've had your suspicions about this for a while.
Part of me wonders if this is the cut season 3 subplot. I wonder if they're reworking it or doing a version of it, because we talked about this before, but basically the Mondriches are approached by a distant cousin who has heard of their luck and their, ascendance in society and wants them to sponsor his eldest daughter for the next season because he can't afford to do it. And they kind of wrestle with the idea for a while before deciding that they want to be the kind of people that elevate others in society and kind of agree to take her on. But Jess Barnell also said that Lady Danbury was going to play a minor role in whatever storyline they have. And she does. Even in this cut subplot, they go to Lady Danbury and they ask her for advice. And she warns them that if they take in a daughter and she doesn't marry well, if she doesn't find a good match, it could negatively impact their own children. But in the end, they decide to do it anyway because they want to make a difference in society. So I wonder if that is going to be something similar to what we will actually see play out in season 4.
And maybe it was cut in season 3 because they already had enough going on just by entering society, so that then having this complicated extra subplot, whereas now that they're established, it's now this is the field.
And they have more power now. And they've also found how they fit into their own power. Yeah. And now they were going to focus on using their power to help others. I think that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. But the real change for the season is going to be our visit downstairs. So this is going to be a new shift for season 4 to see the world of the servants. It's something Beans and I, we had a discussion about, I think, in our last episode that we did together.
Yeah.
And we talked about how the show originally was imagined this way as an upstairs-downstairs contrast, but then they moved more just towards the world of the ton. So it does feel like quite a natural move for the show that will be, it's like the camera is still in the same room and the characters are still the same.
You're just widening it.
Yeah. The close-up lands on a different face this time. Jess pointed out that after 3 seasons upstairs, we now know how difficult it will be for a relationship between a gentleman and a maid. It's like we've spent 3 years immersed in this world, learning the rules, learning the pitfalls. Now you're going to see what happens when you try and break through that.
I think they've done hints of that, right? They've done hints of seeing society outside of Bridgerton, from Penelope going and running around as Lady Whistledown to Eloise and her stuff, and occasionally getting insights from Varley, Footman John, whatever. I think that Bridgerton has definitely dipped its toes into that with the intention of eventually doing it with Benedict's season.
Yeah, and my hope is that it's not just contained to the Bridgerton family, because Hugh Sachs was even speaking on this, and he was talking about how you're going to see characters that have been around from season 1 carrying trays, but now they have these whole storylines. And I hope that he's a part of it. I especially hope that Varley's a part of it. I would love to see more Varley, as well as the servants at the Bridgerton house. So I hope they kind of expand that a little bit and we get to see, and even in the Penwood house, I'd love to see some of those characters just all over, add more flavor to the show.
Yeah.
I'm sad because I don't know that Ray's returning. And I'd love to see more Ray. Well, we'll just have to go back to the rewatch. It's fine. Luke said that it was wonderful to see more of these existing characters. And Golda said it was a real celebration of those behind the scenes, getting to know those understairs. And as you say, it allows those wonderful actors who've always been there the opportunity to really shine. And so we have some of the stills of the servants, so including Footman John, Mrs. Wilson, Irma. And then we have a still of all the Bridgerton servants gathered around a table in the servants' quarters.
With Yaron.
They're deep in conversation with Sophie Bett.
Very cute.
In her little maid's uniform. So by episode 4, she's definitely there in the household. And I think this probably ties into, Jess said that there's a particular episode where Benedict and Sophie are living in the same household. And Sophie's in her maid role, Benedict's in his sort of upper class role, and it's really hard for them to navigate.
I had 2 points about that. One, it's really interesting that she said there was a particular episode where they're living under the same roof. So I wonder if Benedict moves on into his own bachelor lodgings after that and kind of gives Sophie some distance when he realizes that she needs some distance, but still can't resist sneaking over and, being near her again. But also, I was talking about how it'd be really cute if they had a scene where they're dancing together because maybe one of the younger children children is learning to dance. And if Hyacinth is pushing to debut and enter society, maybe she would be pushing for things like dancing lessons. So maybe there could be a really cute little dance between Benedict and Sophie.
With Gregory flying a kite in the background, just to get it in there.
Yes.
And Luke did talk about the dancing, actually. He said that so far, because they're still filming, the dancing hadn't been complicated yet, because he says it's very mediocre dancer. So it sounds like any dancing that they have is
subdued,
isn't structured, it's more organic.
Yeah, that's why I thought maybe a dancing lesson would be something that's kind of low-key, and it could be kind of like slow and soft and intimate. And then in the behind-the-scenes video, we saw a little bit of their masquerade dance where he's teaching her to dance, and you can see again that it's very intimate and slow, and he's coaching her as he slips his arm around her and like brings her tighter because he's teaching her. So we're not going to see like the sweeping dance, but kind of a very soft, intimate dance.
We have some of the script, don't we? I mean, we have the audition script from ages ago. And that was all about dancing. Oh, and Lecky, good news for you, because Jess talked about the music actually, and she says, my angle for the music is classic rock. It's what you're made for, babe.
Love it. Love it. Let's get some good music in there. Let's get some Arctic Monkeys. Let's get just any sort of rock music, really. Oh, and Yaron suggested maybe a Taylor Swift song. So, you know, Enchanted. Yeah.
I mean, it has to be Enchanted. But yeah, I love that we're going to spend time with the servants. As you guys know, like, the only reason I started watching the show is because of Footman John.
Yeah.
So like, how full circle is that?
He's also a fan favorite at this point. We all love him. I'm so glad that we're going to be able to spend more time with him.
Libby asked, what do you hope to see in Footman John's story in season 4? Just doing walking, breathing, moving.
I want to see more of his like sassy side because he's very opinionated. I love the scenes where he's with Eloise and he can't really hide his face and his expression when she's doing something silly or putting Theo in his place and stuff like that. So I really want to see more of his quippy, sassy, like I want to see his larger than life personality, but able to express it because he's going to be in his own world, you know, downstairs.
And I think this is what's going to be the most fun about having this element. I think they said it as well. We're going to see these characters that we love so much talked about from the perspective of others. Because if you think about it, the Ton is completely ridiculous. We love the characters, but they are ridiculous and their worries are sometimes so frivolous and silly. And so it's going to be really fresh to see them from the perspective of others.
Yeah. And I also want to see them reacting. There's this scene, we saw the leaked footage of Footman John greeting Eloise and Co when they return home. So if like Eloise says something like she's complaining about what, you know, life in Scotland was like with Fran and John and how quiet and boring and stuff it was. If we cut to him and he has this little like smile, he knew that it was going to be that way or something like that. Just little moments where they're focusing on them a little bit more would be cute.
These are the people who run the entire show. If you think about it, the people in the Ton can't even get dressed by themselves.
Yeah.
These people, they know them better than anyone. They also like know far too much. Just like the poor footman who had to watch Anthony and Sienna, like they're exposed to everything. And then also maybe we'll see that this is how gossip spreads and how it reaches people like Penelope and the power that the Ton would never think that their servants held the power. But I'd love to see how we see that that's where the power is and that's where the society is. You know, this magical illusion, it's all done through the hard work, sort of those downstairs.
That'll be fun.
But finally, guys, let's talk the Masquerade, shall we? There have been quite a few filming leaks, so the visuals weren't really a surprise, but we got a lot more glimpses than I think we expected. And as we were saying earlier, a large chunk of the Masquerade is going to be taken up in 401. Jess said that a lot went into realising the vision. She said that masquerades were a real thing in the Regency era and they were all about costume and concealment, about the opportunity to hide your identity and get up to things that normally wouldn't be allowed, that the rules were a lot looser. And I think that has implications, obviously, for Benedict and Sophie to even meet, but it has implications for other characters. If this is a season about what's forbidden, then you open with this moment of, it's kind of like the Trowbridge Ball, this moment where transgression is allowed. So how does that impact the servants moving in the space? People like Francesca that are gonna go on these journeys of what's forbidden, and they have like the taste of it at the Masquerade.
It's interesting you point that out because in the behind the scenes video, there's this one shot of a camera guy, and then in the corner you can actually see one of the Bridgerton maids like standing in the corner of the ball. So the servants will be within this ball. So I wonder if we will see kind of their perspective watching this kind of opulent, very showy ball.
I wonder too if like they'll be able. Was she wearing a mask or no?
Sophie?
No, one of the maids.
Oh no, you couldn't see her face, just the uniform. I'm assuming they are going to be the only ones who don't have a mask on, or if they do, it'll it'll just be, it's irrelevant because they're wearing their uniforms.
That's true. But I'm just saying, like, I wonder if it would just give people more confidence to, like, speak to them openly, for them to feel comfortable to speak openly, that like breaking that sort of fourth wall of society, you know? So it would be interesting for sure.
Well, Jess said that Masquerade was influenced by A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I love. That's my favourite Shakespeare play. And how the set designers, the costume team, the hair and makeup, they all work together to realise this vision. And it's really fantastical and exaggerated. Jess said that there were important cloud motifs, like a cloud was on the floor. And also there is a constellation on the floor, which is an Easter egg, but she couldn't remember which constellation it was. I'm sorry, I cannot spend...
Did some constellation research last night.
Oh, Lecky, no. Oh, I was just about to say I can't bring my soul to spend the next 8 months Googling constellations. Lecky's already done it.
I was trying to look up tragic love stories or love stories that are tied to constellations or whatever.
Lecky is going to spend the next 8 months researching constellations. I take everything back. Oh, God.
Okay, so this is a romantic folktale called The Cowherd and the Weaver Girl. The story originated in China, I believe, but has also been adapted into tales in both Korea and Japan. So it tells the story of a deity of sorts, a heavenly maiden who wove clothes for the gods. She fell in love with a humble cowherd on Earth, and it was love at first sight. They got married, which infuriated the Weaver Girl's parents, the Jade Emperor and the Heavenly Queen. So the Heavenly Queen punished them by removing her golden hairpin, which unleashed a great river across the sky, which ended up separating the lovers. However, the Jade Emperor eventually took pity on them and allowed them to meet once a year, and on that night, flocks of magpies and crows would then form a bridge of wings across the Milky Way, letting the lovers reunite for a single day before they had to part once more. So all in all, it's a star-crossed love story about love's endurance, no matter how far apart two lovers may be, which kind of relates to the benophie story, if you ask me.
Well, we said earlier that the costumes reveal the story of where characters are emotionally, mentally. So Pen's emotionally a pirate. I suppose. I get it, Pen. However, she said if they didn't use the costumes to reflect the emotional status.
They borrowed them from the book?
Yeah, they used it from the book, An Offer from a Gentleman. Our listener Erin said, my heart sank when Jess said that some of the costumes for Masquerade were the same as in the book. I thought, leprechaun, Pen, here we come. Erin, I had the exact same sickening thought. I was like, they're going to put Nicola Coughlan in a leprechaun costume. But alas, we avoided that particular bullet. Lecky, you mentioned earlier that it looks like Eloise is going to be Joan of Arc.
Fits her character too, perfect for the season before her own love story when she's completely rebelling against love and everything that stands for.
Beans, have you seen that look?
No.
It's kind of blurry and it's kind of hard to say. Shocking, something from Bridgerton be blurry.
She's to the left of Violet in the background, and you can see kind of like the armor on her shoulders and her short hair. Very, very short cropped hair.
Oh. Okay, so it was, for me, that's quite a lot of skin showing for Eloise.
But she's got that armor on her shoulder. She's like, I'm here, I'm present, but do not touch me.
Right.
She's like, Colin took off his armour last year, I picked it straight back up off the floor, whacked it on, no one come near me.
Yeah. It also reminds me of that scene in season 3 where Colin is talking about how Eloise and Penelope as children, they wanted to play.
Yeah, Don Quixote.
And now they're both like swashbucklers. Penelope literally has little scimitars and like skull and crossbones like decorated all over her. So they're both fighters at this masquerade.
Colin was like, can we do a couple's costume? And she's like, fuck off, I'm going with Ella's Joan of Arc.
Cute.
I just think somewhere poor Sir Philip is just sitting there not having a clue that his future wife is just being Joan of Arc. So we've seen Sophie and Benedict's costuming. We've talked about their costuming before. It's sort of very simple in a world which is like completely exuberant. And Luke said that he's a bit of a Romeo in that, you know, when Romeo turns up to the ball in Romeo and Juliet and he really doesn't want to be there and he's really dragging his heels, Ben is kind of the same, which is why his costume is sort of clearly thrown together.
In fact, there even appears to be what looks like paint splatter on Ben's coat and shoes, which suggests he may have been preoccupied, perhaps dabbling with some painting, before he realized he'd lost track of time and needed to ride off for a late arrival at the ball.
Kat Quinn revealed that Sophie seems to be wearing an amethyst necklace. The amethyst is the national gemstone of Korea, so it could be some sort of special family heirloom. And then, in general, for Ben and Sophie, as you said, Lecky, like the masquerade is this liminal space. And a lot of these moments between the two of them are going to be set in these spaces where the barriers of society have broken down or have temporarily been suspended, like a staircase, which is between worlds, like this ball, which is a broken space for them to bond.
Yeah. And they've translated their moment from the book, which takes place on a balcony. Instead, they escape the ball, run down a flight of stairs into like this garden to have this moment together. So they're, again, leaving society behind to kind of craft their own world for the two of them.
So we'll see how that goes to them. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. But the true revelation of the 2 hours, whatever we've been recording, 2 glorious words. Pirate pen.
Pirate pen.
I mean, never in a million years would I have thought that today we'd be sitting here talking about pirate pen. How glorious. And I think, you know what, fans? We've done this together. This is something that through years of making jokes about Pirate Colin, he was never a Marlborough man or whatever he was supposed to be. For years we spent saying that that man was a pirate. And look what's happened. The show has given us Pirate Penelope. Veg, how is she looking?
Yo, ho, bloody ho, dearest listeners. In our last episode, we were mourning the dying moments of our much-loved Pirate Colin. Well, it turns out we needn't have bothered, because no sooner had we given the pirate coat a sea burial than we were blessed by Neptune with a true siren of the sea, the captain of the good ship Polin and marauder of all our heads, hearts and diddly parts, Pirate Pen. Honestly, what an upgrade on Pirate Colin. Truly, she is a thing to behold. Where do we even begin? Firstly, those ginger curls have been stolen away and replaced with a bounty of tumbling blonde waves. As for her dress, book fans will be thrilled to know that there is not a single leprechaun in sight, as Pirate Pen is decked out from head to toe in black and gold. And if that wasn't a thrill enough, we have a brand new neckline for Pirate Pen, with her dress swooping into a daring V-neck, accompanied by long black and gold sleeves and her very own black gloves. Please stand aside, Pirate Colin. Your wife is ready to tug her own ropes this season. And we are just obsessed by the detailing on Pen's dress, especially the numerous skull and crossbones found on her bust, her neckline and the sash across her waist. Absolutely love. It's also good to see the Polin interior decor having its own night out, with the seashells previously seen decorating the walls of Bloomsbury, now decorating Colin Bridgerton's true home, Penelope Bridgerton. And of course, who needs sails on the ship when you've got a hat like this one, dear listeners? We were left silenced at the sight of the most magnificent hat to grace a head since the scene-stealing hat of printed papers worn by the paper printer as he prints paper, last seen in 1813. Pen's black and gold masterpiece is at least 2/3 of the size of Penelope herself, and I quite frankly have no idea how she's balancing it so perfectly on top of that wig, but my word, we are forever changed. We've also spent a while trying to figure out what the embroidered symbol on the hat is, but it is kind of hard to tell. Possibly a kraken, maybe just a nice fancy squiggle, but we are happy either way. I get the distinct feeling that Polin fans are being trolled to the highest degree by Shondaland for all the clowning we did over Pirate Colin back in the day, and I, for one, could not be happier about it. Pirate Pen, you can drop my anchor and raid my decks any day.
And guys, how are you feeling? Have you ever seen a hotter pirate in your life?
I was astonished.
Yeah.
I did not anticipate that she would be a pirate, but I very much hope we get a couple's costume and they're both pirates together. Please, thank you.
Yeah. Or he's like an octopus or something. I don't know.
Well, we've had quite a lot of questions about what Colin's going to be dressed as. What are your guesses?
Well, you know mine.
An octopus.
Yeah.
I hope he's a pirate, to be honest. However, I was taking screenshots of this ball and there was...
You spiraled. I was trying to pull you out of this spiral this morning and I just couldn't.
I don't think it's him. I'm just saying it would be funny, also extremely tragic, because he has to be a pirate.
Funny wasn't the word you were using this morning.
It would be terrible. It would be terrible and also funny. But standing next to Fran and John in one of the behind the scenes is this guy. You can see this guy from behind. He's in a horse costume. He's wearing all black. And then he has kind of this like wire mesh horse thing on his head. And I was like, if Colin showed up to the Masquerade dressed as a horse, because that's the beginning of his love story with Penelope, that would be hilarious. But please, no, just give me the pirate.
Yeah.
My theory is that Pen is the pirate, Pen's the captain of the ship. I mean, she's put in the work, let's be honest. I want him to be, I'll have to show you the screenshot of the guy that I'm meaning. I don't think it's him, but I'd like his costume to be like that. He's like one of the shipmates.
A sailor.
So he's in like a white billowy costume.
Prince Eric.
So he isn't a pirate as well, because like Pen's in charge.
I hope he has an eye patch.
I was going to say an iPad. I was like, and then someone said that baby Featherington could be a little parrot.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
They finally got their ginger baby.
Yeah,
Dreams
love it.
come true, eh? Pirate Pen, incredible. Also, they're just having fun with it because it's clearly a joke about Pirate Colin. And then it's Nicola's hair.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that the masquerade is like breaking the fourth wall a little bit as well. Because then like all the boundaries have completely dissolved, which is what what you need for this huge set piece. And then last question before we go to closing thoughts. Jackie said, now that you found his coat in the last podcast episode, do you think he'll bring the pirate coat to the masquerade? Guys, we have something to say about this fucking pirate coat. So we hinged the entire last episode on it being the last
hurrah. The last hurrah of the pirate coat.
On it being the last thing of the pirate coat. We wrote a song for Beans. Beans recorded this song.
By the way, can I talk about that really fast? That really fast? So when they asked me to sing the song, I thought they also wanted me to do like the instrumental part for it too. No. Yeah, like an entire production in 24 hours. And I was like, okay. So I got to working on it. It ended up becoming the most haunting, bizarre piece of work I've ever done in my life. I hated it. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever present this to you guys.
So guys, we wrote this script. We spent hours editing. Beans dedicated her life to producing this song before we were like, Beans, we just need you to sing it. and then one of our lovely listeners
commented
sent a message on Instagram. She was like, you guys know that it's in episode 4, don't you? I was like, for fuck's sake. He wears it in the brothel. I can't.
The thing is, I don't often rewatch the brothel scene.
No, neither do I.
I'll just say that. And also, I will make the argument that the brothel scene is a reshoot. So originally, the balloon fair, the balloon sequence was the last time we actually saw the pirate coat.
Originally.
I feel justified in saying that.
Yeah.
So the pirate coat will make a return appearance in our next rewatch. Great. Thank you to the person who did that.
Yeah.
Apologies, everyone else. You know, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some, but I don't know who prefer Pirate Colin, Pirate Pen, both sailing the high seas. So there we go. That's kind of everything. The show is still in production. The cast have talked about the experiences still being halfway through. They talked about being on the new set and how that's been built, the recreation of the Royal Crescent, seeing Gunter's in autumn. Our lovely Moon Pie said that they were slightly perplexed by the combination of the purple wisteria and the brown leaves on the trees. Asked what kind of climate is Mayfair? What kind of climate is Mayfair can be added to the list of what the fuck is happening to the time zones and time jumps and timelines of Mayfair.
I would just say that the wisteria is magical. Like, it's just, you know, like it's...
Never dies.
Yeah, it never dies.
Don't need to water it.
And then in the last season of Bridgerton, it'll just like
wither,
crumble into sand, like the sands of time.
Oh. And then when they were asked what they loved most about the show, Luke said that it is entirely on its own terms. It's flawless, perfect. It can't be compared to anything else. Meanwhile, Yerin said it's the joy that it brings people, stories about people coming together. She also said she loves how much people love the show. And then ultimately, Luke hopes that people will be swept away by the story and that Yerin wants the story to give people a sense of hope. There's a lot of division, but the story shows that you can see people for who they are, sort of regardless of what divides us and differences we have, and that love can combine us together. And also make you a widow, I guess, is the theme of the episode. Like,
love can be given to you and it can also be taken away.
It can be taken away.
Love will bring us together.
So 2 very final questions. Moon Pie said, did the promo change any speculation you had about season 4 or did it remain on track? I really like... because we suspected about the upstairs downstairs. I like that that's definitely going to be part. I like the Hyacinth and Greg's angle as well.
Yeah.
For me, I can't make heads or tails of the timeline in terms
of... What a fucking shock. Lecky can't figure out Bridgerton timeline. Stop the presses.
Well, because I thought, you know, Masquerade, time jump, my cottage, return to the Bridgerton house. Like, I don't understand what's happening in episode 2.
Oh yeah, when's the time jump happening?
Guessing the end of episode 1 or into episode 2, but I don't understand what is happening with the benophie scenes that we've seen in episode 2. So,
answers on up an Instagram comment, please.
Yeah.
And Erin lastly said, this was so much more than I expected this far away from a release date. Do you still think it will be released in early 2026? Yeah, I think the Netflix slate is too busy for 25.
Yeah, I think 2026 sounds right, unless there's a delay in Stranger Things for some reason.
Yeah, that's the other possibility.
I think, like, potentially it could be, like, last 2 weeks of December, but realistically, we'll probably see it. And this is very loose, but it was correct last time. We'll probably see it around March or April.
Yeah. See you in here, guys. Bloody hell. Well, until then, we have a feast to keep us going. We will have more thoughts, I'm sure, as we go forwards. We will be returning back to season 3, though, just to confuse the timeline even more. But until you hear from us again, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at WhatABarbPod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you enjoy listening to your podcast, we are available on all podcast platforms. And if you'd like to view beautiful collages along with your podcast, you can watch on YouTube.
If you maybe want to one day listen to Beans's haunting attempt at producing a pirate song accidentally, then I don't know if that'll be it, but maybe join the Patreon.
Yes.
At patreon.com/whatabarbpod. Beans, I've no idea what you're going to sing.
Oh.
Can you go away and produce an entire soundtrack in 24 hours? Thank you very much.
This is a song I have stuck in my head right now. Do 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 do.
Tom's Diner.
Who's Diner?
Tom's.
Who's Tom?
That's the song. The song is called Tom's Diner.
Okay.
Yep. There's lyrics to it, but all I remember is do 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 do. I am sitting in a diner and I'm watching Bridgerton. Something 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 something.
Da 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 da.
It's so funny because you know you were like, there are lyrics, I just can't remember them. I just typed Tom's Diner lyrics and it's da 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 da.
Told you.
Oh, thank you. Goodbye.
Do 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 do. Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
A Polin podcast.